Why, yes, indeed. Stream elements, which I still haven't figured out how to use. I am live now with a totally black screen here because I need to re-add the scenes. And also, I need to change today's rules because it is no longer the same rules. So for today, we have a lot of talking to do. And I learned my lesson from last night. I'm not going to do this all in one sitting, probably. But if I don't pull myself away, I might just sit here for the whole time. So, assumes you're playing a new game Nightmare, no longer relevant because this is no longer anything to do with combat. Availability matters, doesn't even matter anymore. Placements inside the tier doesn't matter, that's still true. This rule doesn't really apply either. So once again, this is going to be a day of tier lists. Pardon me. And we have, I don't even know how many people. Let me just double check real quick. Where is my file? I need to find better places to save these kinds of things. We have 189 things to tier. Technically 191. So there's almost 190 characters inside this one massive tier list. I do immediately regret my choice. Hey Kenshi, good evening. I hope your evening today has been well as well. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what I'll be doing for the next 3 hours of my life. Up here, window capture? Okay, never mind. I'll re-add the scene. Be that way. Ta-da! Once again, we're coming back here to a tier list. Just like yesterday's tier list, we go from S to F with a single slot reserved for my very favorite and my least favorite, or some may even say hated, character. So this list no longer extends to just combat units, and I don't care how good or bad they are in battle because this is how much I like them as a character and how well I think they're written. I think it'll be fun. This gives me a chance to actually talk about the story side of this series, which I rarely do. I'm always more of like the gameplay / combat style guy. Is the story and character development is not something I necessarily talk about. I've always chosen to reserve those decisions for just my own personal opinion because opinions are dangerous things to have. For tonight, and just for tonight, I'm gonna break that rule and go full opinion mode. There are a lot of characters to go through. Opinions, who needs them? I know, right, Dan? Right here are 189 characters, technically 191 because all three of the ravens are just triplets of each other. So I just added the ravens. Obviously not all of these are playable. Some of these are major characters, some of these are minor characters. Some of these characters I prefer to never see. Opinion stream, yay. Let's see how many people are still watching by the end of this. So I will note before I begin, not every character is in here. If I added every single character that ever has a face into this tier list, we will be here for 2 days. There are probably easily over 400 of them if we added every single one. So the rules here are pretty simple. If I care enough about them, I put them in here. That means some characters are in this list that doesn't really necessarily have a lot of appearances. Some others just aren't in this tier list because I just didn't really see too much development in them to be worth tiering. So as an example, for instance, Paula and Lambert, not in this tier list. They are definitely not in this tier list. Who just called me on my phone? Me, who only wants to know Claire and Teal's placement. It's probably top weighted because I do enjoy this series. I enjoy a lot of the characters here. So, you know. Alright, so we're going to get started here. Like I said, some characters are just not in it because I just don't think they have enough screen time. Paula and Lambert, who cares about them? I care about Wickham more than I care about Paula and Lambert. So, neither of them are in here. Teal is great. Claire is kind of meh. She needs therapy. Everybody in Samaria needs therapy. You really think Claire is a unique case of that? All right, we'll begin. This list is in alphabetical order. We're going to start with everybody's famous bald knight, Abbas. If you have the voice files for 0, you'll realize that Abbas was probably voiced by an office worker. His voice was really, really weird. It's very low pitch, very quiet, oftentimes inaudible, and very little emotion put into it. The last part may have been intentional, but I think it's just really funny that Abbas's voice in 0 actually just sounds like someone at Falcom just like put a mic up to their face in the office and started speaking his lines. Just on that, I think it's funny. Also, he gets to be Wazi's babysitter, which I think is a fun role. He kind of reminds me of the male version of Reese. Just because all of the squires seem to just be babysitters for the Dominion. This even extends as far as Toby and his role to Ein. I think Abbas is fun and charming, even though you don't see a lot about him. My favorite memory of him is definitely when he gives you the Magius course, because apparently beating everybody at Palm Party makes Lloyd a brilliant strategist. So yeah, there's that. Other than that, he's a little bit more in the background. I wish I saw more of him, and he seems like a good guy. I have no complaints with that. I have no complaints about him. I'm going to put him in the good old B tier. Let's also be respectful about this. Oh yes, that's definitely implied. No. Oh no, right off the bat, we're already committing illegal acts. Next up, we have Ada. Ada Grant. The person whose last name you probably don't know unless you looked it up. Ada is essentially Patrick with less development time. I'm not sure what the game was thinking by presenting Ada and Frizz to you, when they start off as being Cedric's stooges and eventually develops minds of their own and then goes against Cedric and essentially joins you. I think it's cute that Sydney wants to hit on her, and I thought that was a pretty cute relationship that they could have developed. What I don't quite understand is just how little screen time Ada and Frizz got, with what Falcom was clearly trying to pull with like the equivalent of Class 1 to Class 7. Just someone who essentially looks down upon the main protagonist group and then eventually joins their cause. Ada has definitely received a lot less writing than Patrick in that regard, but the ship is cute. And also, between the two of them, I would say Frizz is probably my more preferred person to Ada. So I'm going to put Ada down here in C, and I just noticed, actually, I'm missing a tier. I'm missing a D tier. I have no idea how I'm missing a D tier, but there we go. We fixed it. She's cute, at least. I do agree with that. She is cute. Next up is Agate. I like Agate. I have no complaints about Agate. Unfortunately, whatever tier I put him in doesn't matter, because Erica is about to kill him within the next 2 years. So really, it's just whatever I want to carve on his tombstone. And he's a good bro. He starts off very rough around the edges, and then later on you learn about him, and you start to really like him for a lot of things what he is. He's a very responsible person. A, B, C, D, E. He's comes off as a very responsible person, and he's dealing with the trauma of his past in a very, in my opinion, very adult and very responsible way. And also, now that Tita is just romantically zip-tied to him, he is unfortunately either going to be arrested or murdered. So I think posthumously, I'm going to put him into A tier. What's E? I don't know. E is probably that thing that nobody ever... Oh, geez. Hold on. I opened a lot of things accidentally. E is that tier that nobody cares about. No Agate equals non-happy Tita, and no one wants that. That's also very true, Kenshi. Next up is Aina. She never ever got drunk, ever, not even once. The game just makes sure you can't be drunk, but other than that, she's very responsible. I liked her door in the third. I think that's actually surprisingly became one of my favorite doors. Just exploring Aina's backstory, and I could really appreciate and reciprocate with her speech about how people can briefly show their true colors in the face of greed, and what the depth that people will sink, how low people will sink to in order to essentially secure wealth. I can sympathize with that. I didn't necessarily grow up in an environment like that, luckily for me, but it's definitely something that I've seen firsthand as well and read about a lot. It hits home for me. I think I like that growth, and I like the fact that after her whole stint with Charizard, they became really good friends, and then she takes up a job as a guild receptionist, which is perfect at home for her. I like her character, so I'm gonna give her about the same tier as Abyss. She is a damn legend. That I can agree. She makes her own mustard gas grenades. That's got to count for something. Next up, we got Alan Richard. So Alan Richard is. I never disliked him, even in the first game when he essentially turns against you and is all sorts of evil. I don't think there was ever a moment where I actually disliked Alan. And what I didn't actually like as much as I thought I would was his Star Door. Don't get me wrong, it was the redemption arc for him, and honestly, you didn't really need to sell Alan Richard to him. I already liked him before and after the Star Door. It didn't really change my mind about anything. I can respect him for choosing to realize that his his patriotism can actually come back to harm the thing that he wants to protect. And by realizing that, he made the most responsible decision possible, which is just to remove himself from a position that he's clearly qualified to be in because he's afraid that he won't be able to keep himself in check. I can respect that. I think that's a great power move from him. And it's definitely the responsible and correct things to do. And upon realizing like that's the choice that he went with, and the ability for him to face up to his old soldiers and say, you know, you want me back, but I get it, but I'm not coming back. That's way more harm than good. And the fact that he can realize and stick with it no matter how much they pester him about it, or like even curse at him, or even call him a traitor or whatever. I think he himself knows that what he's doing is the right and noble thing. And that to me gives him a lot of points. I like his character. And like I said, there was never actually a moment when I disliked him. Same as Agate. I really like how they both got developed and got fleshed out and finished in their arcs. So I'm going to put them in the same tier. Next up is the other Alan that a lot less people care about. The only thing I'll say about this Alan is I find it very, very curious that among every single member of Thor's, like the Thor's campus, and every single member of the Thor's branch campus, Alan is the only person to be affected by the curse. Nobody else got affected by it. And there are a lot more people with a lot more trauma than Alan. Alan's biggest problem is that he can't really get over the fact that he's a commoner and Bridget is not, and he feels unworthy and he's desperate to prove himself. That couple was a massive, just pulsing inferiority complex. Made the curse took him over, and then he just became brash and terrifying to deal with. I'm just gonna say that he doesn't deserve Bridget. I know that's a little bit harsh of a sentiment to drop, but he's never really had to endure a lot of the things that just blame the curse, bro. I know. Wasn't a little part, yeah. He has a lot, like, so does everyone. Everybody has a desire to protect someone. Alan is not unique in that standpoint. Everybody has their own family issues and other issues to deal with. Alan is not alone in that standpoint. He is alone in that he's the only member of old Thors and new Thors to be affected by the curse. That stems from his own personal character weakness that the curse was able to take and exploit. And that in itself, I do think says quite a bit about him. But that's also why I can't really bring myself to really like Alan. He's been given just about the same amount of support as everybody else, but instead of recognizing it and essentially choosing to empower himself from it, he kind of spirals down in the other direction. And instead of actually taking things into his own hands, he essentially becomes manipulated to essentially do harm. Hello, I'm going to ask for no spam, but welcome to the stream. That's my actual real life sister. Everybody say hi. So, for Alan, I'm a big fan. Just subscribe. You did not subscribe. Like, if you want to subscribe to my channel, I'd rather you just pay me $5 as opposed to paying me half and then paying and then like paying the other half to Twitch. If you really want to subscribe to me, just give me $5 next time you come over. All right, so next up we got Alan. So I gave my spiel about it. I'm going to put him in. This might seem harsh, but there are reasons where I have reasons to just really not like him. I just don't think he has the initiative to have been given whatever he wants in life. Like, he made it into the fourth, I'll give him that. That's actually a real accomplishment. So I'm going to put him in D tier for now. Next up is Albert Russell, and this man is insane in all the good and bad ways possible. I do know that Hamilton is in Kuro, I think. At least Hamilton is Calvardian, and they retcon Hamilton's gender, because Hamilton was not a woman before Kuro came out. But of the three disciples of Professor Epstein, Albert Russell is probably everybody's favorite one. He has the mad scientist vibes going on, but at the same time, he's also normal and not grumpy, and that counts for something. So I like him. He's responsible. He bails us out. Pretty vanilla character, all things considered, in terms of an ally. Disappears around the third for some unknown reason. I'm going to put him in B tier. Next is Detective Dudley. Detective Dudley comes out to be very brash at the start, and he almost seems like he's working against you, but then you realize that instead of someone that's actually working against you, he has his own battles to fight, and the core corruption of Crossbow Police that he's constantly struggling in is a much more real issue than what the SSS initially realizes. And through Dudley as a medium, that's when the SSS starts to gradually realize, oh yeah, this is actually huge. Like this, there are systematic issues here. And at the end, when Dudley actually warms up to the SSS, agrees to cooperate with them, and essentially becomes a grumpy uncle of the group, that's when you realize, what game am I rating? It is written at the bottom of the stream there. It is Trails of Cold Steel, or Trails in general, the game series. So I do like Alex Dudley after playing. I spent about 200 hours playing the two Crossbow games, and throughout, in my opinion of Dudley, has also just went way up from the start to the end. To the end, he is someone who has a strong sense of justice, and he'll do whatever it takes to essentially correct the wrongs in the system. And at the end of Crossbow, I do concede that if somebody was to head up the new CPD, Dudley would be the best candidate for it. He definitely knows what he's doing. He has a good head on his shoulders. So I'm going to put him in the A tier. Next up is Alphen. Alphen is... So there are three possible candidates for the next throne of Erebonia. There is Alphen, there is Cedric, and there is Oliver. Oliver has already said he doesn't care, and Cedric has removed himself from the race. So now we just have Alphen left, and luckily, I think Alphen was normally the best candidate of the three anyway. I said this a little bit in Neo's stream on last Friday, but I'll repeat it again. She came off as someone who likes to tease people a lot, because when you come out of the Girls' Academy, apparently that changes people. Oh, thank you for the host, Neo. Welcome to the tier list. I don't think you're watching. If you are, please look away. Yeah, but coming out of the Girls' Academy definitely changes someone. She's gossipy and she's flirty in, I guess, cute and innocent ways, but at the same time, she has a heart of gold. And many times throughout the entire cast interaction with her, it becomes very clear that she is a virtuous person. Can't say he's not in the chat. Thank you, Dan. She's a very virtuous person, and she has a good heart, and she genuinely... I do agree with the game's assessment that she is one of the two treasures of Erebonia, and now probably one of the one treasure in Erebonia, because Cedric's just kind of removed himself from the equation. Empress Alphen would definitely be the best direction for the nation heading forward, but that's not going to be for 20, 30 more years. But Alphen as it is, I think it's a sterling character, and really we still have Tova. Empress Tova, are you sure? Are you sure you want that? But I love Alphen. I think she's a great character. How she redirected the pressure away from Reen, especially during the dance, honestly, it's a quiet thing. It's a quiet thing, but it says so much about her character. Someone who's comes off as playful, but when when push comes to shove, can really demonstrate that she has maturity far beyond her years. That in itself gives Alphen a lot of points in my heart. So I'm going to put her in, once again, the A tier. There's nothing for me to complain about. What I can complain about, beautiful segue, by the way. Want to become famous? Ew, I do not want to become famous. You think I'm doing this for fame? Let me just ban that bot real quick. There we go. What I can complain about is the next character. Beautiful segue. Elisa Reinford. So this is where I'm going to start losing people. I dislike Elisa for, I think, a very uncommon reason. I don't dislike her because she's pushed as the canon romance option. I don't care about that. I genuinely don't care about that. I think it's okay. I didn't even go with Elisa ever, but main girl syndrome, kind of. I didn't even go with Elisa. I didn't really find the canon romance thing to be too off-putting ever, even though sometimes it was getting really obvious. That's not what I dislike her for. I don't dislike her because of her personality. I think her personality is fine. She is very responsible. Like she has a good heart. When she's younger and more immature, she tends to push people away a lot because of the way that she was raised. But as she spends more and more time in class 7, she realizes what her role in life is, and then I do have mods, yes. And then she essentially becomes a more mature version. She takes on more managerial positions, and she actually makes something of herself. I can respect that. What I dislike her for is how she gets treated by the story writing. She essentially disappears for the longest time while still getting pushed as the canon option. And that in itself becomes like a total conflict. You can't really give less spotlight to old class 7 and still make someone care enough to essentially explore with them. CS3 and 4 made her ed is pretty much the point that I'm trying to get at, where if she's disappearing from the story, there's only so much of her past history with Reen that you can harp on before you reduce her character to nothing more than just, I'm a manager and also Reen loves me. She doesn't really go much further beyond that. She wanted to prove Arena wrong, and then she just proceeded to never do that for the entirety of CS3 and 4. She became a manager position at RF. Cool. Then what? Did she directly intervene and stop any of Arena's machinations and do anything? No, not really. Like, was she the one who brought Sharon back to her? Kind of, but not really. Like, I constantly expected her to take on more of a role to essentially fulfill a character arc that was essentially left open at the end of Cold Steel 2. And time again, I just found myself wanting for more. And that's not something that rubbed me the right way. To the point where every time I did an Elisa bonding event in Cold Steel 4, I was very unwilling to do it. It was probably it became a drag, essentially, because she's the one that I wanted to learn the least about by some point. And I thought that was weird because on paper, I don't dislike her. I don't dislike her being pushed as a canon, and I don't dislike her characterization. I just don't think she gets. I just don't think she got fleshed enough at the end to really justify me liking her. Yeah, there was nothing there anymore, but there really should have been. There was still meat left on the bone, but nobody really went to cook it. And I don't like raw meat, so I'm gonna put her in, I guess, C tier, because I still think she's okay, just really blah by the end. Next up is Altina, and she is definitely gonna be the first S rank. I am among the common opinion that Altina is precious, and she is likely Reen's daughter from here on out. And Neo talks so much about her growth. I definitely also agree in every way imaginable. She comes out as a emotionless homunculus, and in the end becomes somebody that you want to protect, almost on the tier of Kia. And she's responsible, she takes charge, she wants to actually do something to make her existence worthwhile, constant. And also, she's extremely funny because every single time she just slanders Reen and then everybody overreacts at him. I just think it's the funniest thing ever. Next up is Annalise. Annalise is adorable, and I keep wondering where she's getting all those ice cream spots because the East Grand ice cream stand is not as good as she makes it out to be. So, I wish I see more of her. I think she's in Hajimari. So definitely this tentative rating will change, but just based on what I've seen from her so far, I have so much to say about her in CS3 and 4. I don't want to write an essay. Yeah, I don't either. I kind of cut it way short. So yeah, Annalise is next. I'm gonna put her in B tier. I do like her characterization in Star Wars 5 when she, in my mind at least, canonically beats Richard in a duel, receives Genu, and comes through her own revelation about the way of the sword. Unfortunately, she's also very amateur and green, and out of all the A-Leaves practitioners, she is easily the least powerful, both in gameplay and in story. So she definitely has still a long way ahead of her. Yunkafai's granddaughter has still a lot more to live up to. She is invincible, and she's adorable. Cuteness is justice. Oh my god, I memorized her entire line. Fortune favors the cute. Cuteness is justice. Keep your friends close and your plushies closer. Something. I thought it was cute. And also, my favorite moment with Annalise is definitely in Phantasmagoria. After Ren explains to everyone how the place works, the first thing she does is to try to wish a teddy bear into existence, which I thought was extremely cute. I'm going to put her in B tier. I do like her. All right, next up is everybody's most famous controversy, Angelica. I like Angelica. I may be of the minority. I don't think she's necessarily too cringe, and her habits, let's put it that way, doesn't necessarily bug me as much. I do think Angelica is an interesting case of writing, because usually Falcom's writing isn't really tropey. At least when they do write based on a character trope, they don't let that trope take over the character. Falcom does a very clever way of writing with character tropes. They establish a character off a common trope and essentially uses that as a smoke bomb to distract you from whatever bigger character arc they had going on. Angelica is one of the rare circumstances where her trope does kind of define her in a way, where if she's constantly lusting after little girls, then you know that's still her. Unfortunately, lusting after little girls is a very weird and creepy and messed up thing to do, which is why she draws a lot of ire from the community, I imagine. To me, that doesn't actually... I guess that as a character trait doesn't necessarily bug me. What bugs me is the part that her character essentially starts to get diluted. Her true personality gets diluted by the trope that she's following. Angelica is... she flirts, she gets shot, and she punches, yes. Yeah, so here are some things about Angelica that people don't don't talk about a lot. She's the first person to realize that something was weird with Crow in the Fantastic Four, because Toa, when reminiscing, says that she was the first one to catch on to the fact that Crow might not be what he claimed to be, and she fought a lot with him when they first met. She's the first person to catch on to the fact that George did not actually go to Calvert and actually investigate it. Despite everybody else having doubts, she's the first person to actually go and dig up Crow's grave to see, oh yeah, he's not actually dead, and yeah, she got shot for it, but she is a person who actually takes charge quite a bit. And especially a lot of this gets explained in the drama CD, the Ymir drama CD in Cold Steel 1, and so many other moments, that Angelica is actually a seriously responsible person, and she has a severe, she feels greatly that she needs to be in a position to protect people. She asked Reen to spar her just so she can protect Tova a lot. Wasn't because she was the only one to go to Calvert? Yes, that's a part of it, but also doesn't stop her from being the only person to see Crow and then just went to dig up Crow's grave because nobody else was going to do it. She's someone who's actually willing to take action, even if sometimes sacrilegious or even just straight up illegal. But I can respect that. She's someone who does genuinely care about the people close to her, and she'll essentially do anything to look out for them. That's her character. That's her personality. Her character really dilutes that to the point where it's really hard for me to convince anyone else to like Angelica. So I'm going to take the more, I guess, diplomatic approach and put her in a bit of a middle of the road tier. I'm going to put her in B. She has her moments. She does. Yeah. Next up is Anton. Easy S tier. All right. Next up is Liane Sandlot, who is likely going to be Anton's next girlfriend. Has she not been brutally murdered from the back? Anton's gonna be with the Grandmaster one day. Just mark my words. He will grow up to do great things. There's nothing more to say about Anton. I always root for the guy, and the fact that he finally caught a break simultaneously defies all known logics of the universe, as well as makes me very happy for him. The 250-year-old virgin. That's what happens when you get that's what happens when you become a saint. He got Sharon, yeah, simultaneously against all known laws of logic, but lucky guy. And that's what happens. Like, that's a life lesson. If you wait long enough, you can score yourself the best girlfriend in the world. All right, next up, Liane Sandlot. Sorry, drag this on a little bit too long. Was I disappointed when I learned that all of Liane's motivations essentially boils down to the fact that she can't really get over dry coals? Not really. Not really. I think Liane, as one of the Anguis, is extremely well fleshed out, extremely well thought of. She has a standard sense of chivalry that she sticks to above all else, and at the same time constantly working towards a single goal that she decided to do for over 250 years. She is a beacon of guidance in an antagonistic way, because all Reen essentially had to do at the end was just chase after whatever she was chasing after, just in his own way, even though he doesn't really realize it. The final confrontation with her in the final rivalry was heartbreaking, because I still really wanted Argreon on my team, but I can see how that would be slightly overpowered. So I get why they did the thing they did. There is just some injustice in someone who is in canon so strong that they refuse to be beaten by any mortal, dying due to being backstabbed, which is the least knightly, most cowardly way to take somebody out. And the fact that that's how she died is ironic, disgusting, something that nobody might ever be able to live down. I don't know, but you gotta really feel for her, because I do like her motivation. Someone who really devoted themselves to a strong part of history. It kind of works in a way since we're from him. Yeah, it does work in a way, but speaking from Liane's perspective, that's such a bad way to go. Someone who's so strong that their name becomes a legend didn't fall in battle in like in an honorable way, but instead, when they're at their moment, I guess, when they have their change of heart, when they start to declare themselves to be on the right path, that's when they get taken out from the back. It's one of the worst insults that a knight can receive. But as Liane's whole life, someone who devoted their entire life and cause to Drykos and turns out their life lasted 250 years, there's not really too much you can ask for. She's a very consistent, strongly written, beautiful character. Beautiful in much more ways than one. I think her writing is very strong. And overall, I loved her arc. And as someone who you can definitely feel terrible for, is how their story ended. I'm going to put her in S tier. I really like Liane. You'll be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't really like Liane in some way. Next up is Arios, and the only thing I'll say about Arios is that this guy needs to stop blaming himself for everything. He seems to do this thing where he unintentionally even intentionally, makes it so that he it was as if he was the cause for everything bad that's ever happened, and he constantly tries to atone, and then he just goes way off the edge. And then in the end, he atones again by rejoining the SSS after all said and done. And at the end, it's, I don't know, he got what he deserved, but at the same time, he's never stopped being essentially a valuable ally. So I'm gonna put him in. He sees a bug. He sees the bug die from the rain and blames himself for it. Essentially, the thing that the thing that I always said was he blames himself for like 100 things, but he's only really responsible for one. The one thing being participating in the conspiracy in the first place and not being able to get over Saya's death. But he's a good dad. He's a good friend. He's a good partner. It's just that someone had to knock some sense into him, and when they finally did, he comes around pretty quickly. He is a divine blade. Like he has a good head on his shoulders. I'll put him in B tier. I don't have any complaints about him. Next up is Ash. Ash Carbide. The how long your stream matter? I have no idea what that question means. You'll have to rephrase it in a way that I can understand. Does how long I stream matter is what you're asking? It doesn't matter. I could be live for about 48 hours in a row and nobody will stop me except my sleep. But I can be live as short or as long as I want. Next up is Ash Carbide, the third orphan of Hamal, the forgotten child. Someone who gets adopted into Raquel, gets a mom who can't cook, grows up in his own responsible way. Definitely grew up in the rough part of town. He's very brash. He responds to everything with essentially biting back at them as essentially a way of self-defense to put up a shield all around him. And then when it all comes crashing down, his friends knock some sense into him. Somehow knows how to use that weapon, which the game never really explained. I love the moment in CS4 when he finally confronts Miguel. He realized that Miguel was the person who brought him to Raquel in the first place. And I guess in a rare growth of character, shows how much he's matured by actually saying like he can move on from the past. He's not going to be shackled to it anymore, which was really the common thread of attitude that people have when they're trying to break free from Ishmaelga's influence. Just somebody who's in a very unfortunate circumstance and then refusing to let that define him and then becoming stronger for it all the while. I love that kind of character. I think it's a very inspirational thing to look at even. And just from the inspiration alone, he deserves some points for that. So I'll put him in S. I love his character. Next up is Aurelia. Aurelia said something that I wish the Hamo twist made me feel bad for Luve, who spent so much looking for survivors. Yeah, and they never found him. You gotta wonder how, too. So Aurelia is weird because they expanded on her character in a very specific way. Someone who's achieved the very pinnacle of skill. Someone who's at the very apex of what one can do in life. And she explained that she felt lonely, like, after achieving it all, defeating Lyanne, defeating Victor, mastering all the sword styles, she felt this gnawing emptiness, this huge void that is essentially like, what now? I've done everything. Now what do I do? And then she gets recruited into the Weissland army. And then she becomes one scary general, because that's truly someone who, like, genuinely has pretty much nothing else to aspire to in life. She's already seen and done it all at, like, what, 30? Less than 30? What do you even do with the rest of your life? I guess you just settle down, pop out some airs like she said she would. It's a very one-note character. I think Dan has it right. It's a very flat character as well, in that she is essentially the picture-perfect frame of someone who's accomplished everything at a very young age, and then now has to deal with like an impending sense of void and emptiness and wondering where to go from there. Until I see where she chooses to do with now that like the whole Ishmaelga mess is over and now Erebonia is rebuilding and everyone's in a bigger mess than before because post-war reparations are always more expensive. I'm curious what she chooses to do with herself. There's a huge question mark left for her. I don't think her arc is complete yet as of CS4. To me, she feels incomplete as a character. There's not much to expand on, but she makes up for it in personality. Yeah. I want her to expand more on that. She's someone who's willing, like, she won't take anything from anyone. She will beat up whoever she wants to. That's just her way. And granted, it's like she's a very likable character. I have no problems with her. I just wish she got more fleshed out. So B tier you go. Becky, surprisingly adorable. Also, I love her relationship with Hugo, and at least she's on the right side of saying big monopoly's bad. And her competition with Hugo definitely paints her in a very pleasant light, where she doesn't chase faceless profits nearly as much as establishing networks and connections. And there's something to be said about that. Like, she's the foil character to Hugo, and she's essentially, in the perspective of Rin, at least on the right side of history. And she's someone that's continuously helpful. I love her. I love that when they translated her, decide to give her a Scottish accent. I just think that's adorable. I have no complaints with her. I'll say B for Becky. Next up is Bennett. I'm going to spite this and put her in C purely because she can't say what the hell she's... Just say it out loud. My God. Okay. She was so close with Oscar. So close. But she just can't say it. And until she says it, she's staying in C tier. When she says it, she'll go up. Next up is Beryl. One day, yeah. Next up is Beryl. Beryl goes in her own tier. It's called the Beryl tier. It's Beryl. All right, next up is Blue Blanc. Still sus? I know. She'll never not be sus. She's in the Beryl tier. Where else do I even put her? Next up is Blue Blanc. Blue Blanc is fun. He's a nice guy. He's also a criminal that's also abducted at least one adult woman, which that part just kind of gets forgotten and washed away. Like, he's definitely done some super messed up things in the past in his weird and twisted pursuit for beauty. And then he does a total 180. And instead of pursuing beauty, he just decides to, like, help Vita. Even though I do think him siding with the Weisland army kind of does contradict his own character. He's the guy who, like, looked at the Septarian and went, that's beautiful. That's why I'm in this plan, to see the Liber arc with my own eyes. And on the other hand, you have, like, the Great Twilight, which objectively is probably a beautiful thing. The fusion of two Septarians. And in Blue Blanc's own words, own admission, around the time of Sky, something that can sow discord, the ability to sow discord and discomfort in people's hearts, brings out their inner beauty. You think he'd be all on board for the curse thing. But no, he's against it. He joins Vita, and he joins, like, essentially Rin's side to fight against it. Which is a huge contradiction to what we know him to be. Because he literally did the exact opposite thing 2 years ago in another country. And then he just, like, does a total unexplained 180 and chooses to side with Vita to put away something that he would normally be on board for. He never really explained why he's just suddenly siding with Vita now, or why he even joined her in voting against the other members of Ouroboros. Is discovering a lost Septarian just like what he signed up to do 2 years ago not yet another beautiful thing? What is the difference? What is the difference between, like, turning off the electricity for an entire country versus stirring another country to war? They're both things that he seemed that he would be on board for. But instead he cooperates with one and completely betrays the other for nothing, for, like, essentially an unexplained whim. And that I find to be very strange. And essentially, by the time CS3 and CS4 rolled around, they just kind of forgot he existed. And they kind of did him super dirty. I'll put him in D tier. I don't actually like the guy. So I'll put him in D tier. Next up is Bridget. I feel bad for her. I'll put her in B. That's all, really. I just feel bad for her. Next up is Campanella. The less I know about him, the better. I never want to find out anything about Campanella. I'm going to put Campanella in S tier because he seems like as what he's the self-proclaimed eyes of the Grandmaster, but he seems to always know more. He's appears to have played McBurn for some reason or another. And despite being what would canonically be like one of the weakest enforcers combat-wise, he definitely stirs up his own fair share of troubles. And the fact that he is an enigma, I think, compels me to at least really like him. It compels me so much that if anything was ever explained about Campanella, I would definitely drop this tier by a lot. But for now, I'll put him in A. And as soon as I find out anything about Campy, as soon as that mystery goes away, it's like learning a magic trick. You learn how to do the trick, but at the same time, you ruin the magic. You can never see it in the same way again. That would be a huge shame. The fact that I don't know anything about him makes his character good for me. Next up is Tao Li. Very wishy-washy, very flip-floppy. I do like that he seems to always constantly stick to his one agenda. I'm so excited to meet him in Kuro again because I know he's in Kuro. But tentatively for now, he works for the highest bidder because he's a member of the Mafia. Very consistent, very flat character. Nothing to complain about. I'll put him in C. Next up is Carl Reckness. He has a redemption arc where someone who's an ally of Osborn essentially realizes that what Osborn's doing is really bad, so he turns against Osborn and essentially tries to fix the country in his own way. Very admirable, but also very spineless. Doesn't really do anything, doesn't really contribute to anything. I will put him in C tier. Karna, probably the most responsible and adult member of the four, also was Kurt, Karna, Grant, and Annalise. Also someone with the least screen time. Also, she got her butt whooped by Lawrence in FC, which, I mean, what was she thinking trying to fight him out? And she's never really taken the W even off camera. It's just your stock standard senior bracer that technically has seniority but also cannot really accomplish anything. Very flat character, somewhat uninspired. I'll put her in D. Next up is Cassius Bright, the Chuck Norris of Zemuria, mastered two different styles of the A-Leaves One Blade, the Void and the Helix. Capability include peering into causality, essentially, knows the true nature of everything, as he describes it. And also an army man who feels immense guilt over his wife's death, so he then quits the army and then rejoins the army after all of that kind of blows over. Very good dad, very solid character. Not an S tier for me. He's very, very good. Like someone who can raise Estelle to be whoever she is deserves a lot of respect. That's how you do parenting right, essentially. So I'm going to put him in A tier. I like him, just not as much as the other characters. Next up is Cecile. Cecile as a character who's essentially in like the biggest possible support role for Lloyd. She exists to support Lloyd and do whatever she can for him. Quite possibly, like, even Guy was like, hey, try hitting up Cecile, and Lloyd's like, no, shut up. It's comforting to always have a backup figure for, like, backup sisterly, motherly support figure for Lloyd. Lloyd has very few people in that department, and the fact that Cecile is always there is a source of comfort. And also the fact that she's a descendant of Saint Ursula herself makes total sense, and I think that gives her some bonus points, at least in my books. Just a very kind, pure woman who will do anything for her family, and very responsible, very kind. I really like characters like that, just warm energy, warm big sister energy. I'll give her a B tier. Next up is Cedric. Like I said, I don't fault the guy for falling victim to the curse. I do fault him, but like, I don't fault the guy for falling victim to the curse. I will fault him if he like chooses to stay as a crown prince anyway, and he didn't choose to stay as a crown prince anyway. It's hard for me to like him. Still, I'll put him in D. It's really hard for me to like him. Yeah, I don't have much to say about him. When he got shoved into Testarossa, it would have saved us some effort just to not rescue him. And also, he tried to kill Altina, so that's unforgivable. Doesn't matter how much he repents. Next up is Celeste, a being that we only know of from the past and we meet in the garden. Well, the one that we're teetering here is the artificial intelligence, not the person in the past, like 1200 years ago, who actually like led humanity to break away from Wall-E. And as an AI, she doesn't really do that much. I do like her one dialogue with Chloe at the end, saying that like Chloe shouldn't doubt herself all the time. Celeste sees a lot of herself in her younger years inside Claudia, like someone who's appears to think that they're more inexperienced, but is in reality much more capable than they actually are. And that kind of inspirational speech speaks both a lot to Claudia and to me as a person. And I can respect that. But aside from that, I'll give her C for Celeste. Next up is Celine. Possibly best cat, don't get me wrong. I like the other pets as well, but Celine is best cat. Best cat gets 8 here. Chief Murdoch. This is once again, just like Agate, a posthumous rank, because now that Erica and Albert are both working in the Zeiss Central factory, I suspect that Murdoch will die due to a hemorrhage within about 2 years from now, just due to all the stress. I feel so bad for the guy. I'll give him a beat here. If there's anyone who needs to pray all the time, it's got to be him. All right, next up, Claire. What do I even say about Claire? Claire's character arc in Cold Steel 3 saved her for me. Where's Kape? I'm sorry, Kape's not on the list. I can't find a picture for Kape. I can understand so much about Claire's trauma and Claire's past because of what she went through in her youth. Losing your entire family, finding out it was your uncle, and then having, I'm gonna use the good term here, and then having the determination to still seek justice, even though by her own admission it was like a very twisted way to do it, but having the will and determination to actually put her uncle to justice and put him to death even. That takes guts. And the fact that she's an Ironblood and she's constantly being forced to betray her own morals and essentially giving herself even more trauma to work with. If there's someone who needs therapy in Zemuria, Claire will be like first on the list. She's been forced to do so much that goes against what she considers to be the core of human decency, and she's someone who refuses to forgive herself for those actions. That in itself makes her a very pitiable character for me. I don't dislike Claire. I think that she has her own sense of responsibility. She has her own sense of duty, and she'll do, at the end of the day, she is a soldier and she is a policewoman, and she'll do whatever it takes to ignore her own personal feelings for the sake of the greater interest. And that in itself does definitely take a lot of bravery. I can admire Claire a lot for having that character trait. That being said, now that this whole mess is over, Jesus Christ, get a therapist. My God, I'll put you in A tier. Next up is Clem. Clem could literally be eaten by a monster and I wouldn't care. Alright, next up is Colin. Colin could literally be eaten by a monster and I wouldn't care. But also Ren would care, so I'll give him up a tier. Colin is too pure and innocent for this world. Remember when they thought that he was running away because he was upset that Harold's going to be in the draft, but instead he's just trying to find a way to just make Harold happy for... He's too precious. He's way too cute and adorable. And he's never known anything bad to happen to him. Unfortunately, his parents are super weighed down by sin. But as long as they can raise Colin to just be a happy kid who grows up nice and healthy, they've done right. And Colin is someone who probably deserves even more happiness than what he's already gotten. Unbeknownst to him, his family went through a lot. And none of that is on him. He shouldn't be made aware of any of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I was mostly joking at the start. Colin's an A. Screw it. I like Colin. He's too pure. He's too innocent. How can you not like Colin? Next up is Lieutenant Colonel Sid. Very responsible army man, but at the same time, not afraid to break the chain of command to do what he feels is right. Just like a proper Divine Blade disciple, not doing the right thing sometimes. I'll put him in B tier. Crimson Rosalia. I like Red Moon Rose. It's one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite book series now. I like Rosalia. I like the part where Emma forces her to eat vegetables because her diet is all over the place. I mean, what else do you even say about Crimson Rosalia? I'll put her in C. It's definitely very uninspired, all things considered, but she has her moments. Grandmother. She's cute in all forms, yeah. And also Red Moon Rose, that's where most of her bonus points comes in from. I wish we saw more of that badass side of her, though. She can suck bonk. Alright, next up is this random guy that is probably not important, right? I don't like Crow. I don't like Crow. I'm sorry. I thought that it would have been more compelling if he either never died or just stayed dead. One of the two. I can sympathize with him in like how he lost his family because of Jirai, because Osborne took it all away. Guess what, buddy? Get in line. His motivations were never really that clear. He seems to like flip-flop allegiances based on the drop of a hat. Granted, is not based on the drop of a hat. He doesn't have his memories. He wasn't compelled to do things over and over. He is a strong enough character that everybody kind of chomps at the bit to use him as their tool, and in the process dilutes who Crow is as an individual. He's not Crow Armbrust, the kid who wants revenge for losing Jirai and his grandfather and is always working in the best interest of his homeland. No, he's C, an assassin that's out to kill Osborne, the awakener of the Azure Knight, the kingpin of the Noble Alliance, and one of the trump cards for the Black Workshop. He's not Crow, the boy who wants the best for his homeland. He's not Crow, the boy who grew up influenced by his homeland. He is a weapon of war that everybody wants to get their hands on. That's not the right angle to make him a compelling enough character for me. And if we're just going to like talk ad nauseum about how important he is as the Azure Chevalier, he doesn't really do anything. Like, he has some weird sentimentality with Class 7 because they spent 3 months together as classmates, and now Remo jumps through hell and high water to get him back for some reason. You gotta do more than that to make me care about him. Like, I'm sorry, you just gotta. Do I sympathize with him? Of course I do. His homeland's been taken away in the worst way, and he lost like his closest family member in the process. Good. Expand more on that. Don't just turn him into like this weird blank slate weapon of like living weapon of war and be like, all right, we want you on our team. Okay. He literally joins your party hoping to die at the end. Like, there's so little about Crow that actually goes into like fleshing out his character. He writes off sentimentality and then betrays it all by actually not dying. It's jarring for me. Like, it's so hard for me to like him. I sympathize with him. Don't get me wrong. I sympathize with the character. I don't like the direction they took with him. I just wish it would have been more impactful if he never came back to life. I know that's a cruel thing to say, but if that's what they ended up doing with him, he might as well just stay dead. D tier for me. And that's final. Daniel, definitely the... Yeah, why you dead bastard? I cried for you. That wasn't exactly my feeling. For me, it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again. Like, are you serious with this? I definitely kind of got tired of that. I just don't like Crow. I'm sorry. It's all right. Best I'll do is like C for Crow, but I'll put him in D tier. Next up is Daniel. Uh, I believe he's like no, no, not you, Dan. Daniel is, I think, Clem's permanent babysitter because he seems to always be the one that has to stop Clem from essentially jumping off a bridge just to see what it's like. His life can't be easy, so I'll put him a tier above Clem because he has to watch over Clem. Crow in the same tier as Karna triggers me. You know what? Sold. Up you go. C for Crow. How about that? We'll come to a compromise. C for Crow. Next up, Dean Collins. Really old principal, but also willing to put his life on the line. He defended Chloe's identity from Gilbert when they raided the academy. Granted, it's Gilbert, and you shouldn't be scared of him, but that shows real character. I would have preferred Dean Collins to be the mayor of the Run City instead of Norman, because I don't think Norman has a good head on his shoulders. He shouldn't have won that election. But other than that, not a lot to say. D for Dean Collins. Next up, Dieter Croy, the man who pulled an entire justice speech out of his butt and then went out of his way to betray it. At least in meting out his own very weird, twisted sense of justice. He's too pompous for my liking. And even in the end, instead of really repenting for himself, he's just stuck in a position wondering how it all came to this. And he's definitely the engineer of his own downfall because he's the less competent member of the Croy duo in Crossbell. And for that, there's a lot of reason for me to dislike him. Or at least there's to think that he's not a very good character. I'm going to put him in D tier. Next up, Don Kapua. I like him way more than Josette. I'll put him in C. Very nice old man. I would love to go partying with him one day. Here's another old man that I don't like. Don Marconi. Suck it. Next up is Dorothy. I would love to read one of the books she wrote. And until she shows me one of her books, this is a ransom note. This is a ransom note to Dorothy. Until I can actually read a book that she wrote, she's in D tier. As soon as I get to read one of her books, I will put her all the way up to S. This is my ransom. She will go from D to S as soon as I read one of those books that corrupted Zemuria. Those poor innocent teen girls reading all of her books. I want to read one too, and as soon as I read one, I'll put her up from D tier. Next up is the other Dorothy. This one, Dorothy, I like a lot more. Granted, not as much as any other reporter. I think of all the reporters, Dorothy is my least favorite one, although I do think she's hilarious. I wasn't in third when she somehow ended up in Calvert on a flight to Beauce, which is essentially like falling asleep on your local city bus and then waking up in Romania, unless you actually live in Romania. I don't even know how you can do that, but she is possibly my least favorite news reporter. I like Niall Graves Nielsen, which isn't on this tier list, by the way, way more than her. But that's not of any fault to Dorothy. I do like Dorothy. I just don't like her nearly as much as the others. I'll put her in C tier. Next up is Duke Alvarez. He got what he deserved. F tier. Next up is Duke Cayenne. He got what he deserved. F tier. Next up is Duke Dunan. He got a redemption arc that I felt like was thoroughly undeserved because a bunch of Ouroboros enforcers scared the piss out of him, and then he straightened himself out. F tier. I don't think he deserved that redemption arc. Next up is Duvali. I'll talk about her later. Next up is Ado. Who knew she could drink so much? C tier. Next up is Ein Sonnet. I'm purely tiering this based off Ring of Judgment and the Carnelia novel series. And I really liked her in both of them. B tier. No complaints. All right, next up is a rant. So before I start on this rant, let me just say I'm a firm supporter of Lloyd and Ellie. I think they are perfect for each other. I fully support that relationship. Here comes a rant. Why does her character suck so much? Why is her character so incomplete? It kills me how badly she gets handled. Her rooftop talk with Lloyd is possibly one of my favorite scenes in the Crossbow duology. It establishes her backstory. It establishes her character. It gives a lot of insight into her and Lloyd's developing relationship, which again, I love and support. It tells us why she's in the police office, why she became a police officer. The background of Crossbow, the history of Crossbow. That speech made me sympathetic towards Crossbow as a whole. That one speech is the entire reason why Crossbow is my favorite region in the series. And it's not even close. Crossbow is still my favorite. And then she did nothing. She wanted to join the police force to learn more about the dark underbelly, the truth of Crossbow, and how a nation, how Crossbow can move into a nation as opposed to just be someone else's pawn, and to not be shackled by the whims of foreign nations. Such honorable goals and something that's worth dedicating her life to work towards. And then she does nothing. After that entire talk, she becomes team mom for 150 hours. And in Cold Steel 4, becomes like a statue that's handcuffed to Lloyd wherever he goes. What happened to her dreams and aspirations? What did she do to set anything right? Oh my god. It hurts me to talk about this. I love her character. I really do. That rooftop scene broke me so much. Like when people ask about Zero, I show them that scene. And then Ellie just derails from it and just acts like that talk never happened. Why? Oh my god. F tier is too harsh. I'll put her in D tier. That's as high as I'm willing to go. Which sucks because I really do like Ellie. I like Ellie more than Tio. But move her up one tier and I'll bribe you with one hot shot? Okay. I'll expect payment now. I like Ellie. I really, really do. I still think she's my favorite Crossbow girl. I like her more than Ellie. I like her more than Tio. But at the same time, I can't in good conscience put her all the way up to S tier because they just did her so dirty. They did her way too dirty. Alright, next up, Elise. Look, I'll be honest, if I put Elise as C or lower, Reen might actually just kill me right now, so B tier. This is a bribe to Reen. Next up, Elliot. I think it's sweet that Elliot actually got to do what he wanted to do in life. A tier. I think it's sweet that he set up to become a man of the Empire and become a musician and managed to accomplish both. Also, Bubble Bath superiority. I love Elliot. I think that he's too sweet and he's too innocent. We must protect him. In the same camp as Colin, which is weird, except because he's like 13 years older than Colin. But next up is Elnan. I know nothing about him, and also I don't like him. For like, of all the guild receptionists, I like him the least. I don't even know why. It's just a weird thing I have. So Emma. As the guiding witch of Class 7, Emma has probably grown the most out of everybody in Class 7. Purely because of how prevalent the Hexen clan becomes in the latter half of Cold Steel, and seeing her going from someone who has a lot of self-doubts into someone who's willingly and capable of holding back even McBurn single-handedly with her magic is a really good character growth for me. Someone who accepts the responsibilities as a wandering witch and then takes that and elevates it into a level that I'm sure not even Rosalia herself would have expected her to be able to do. I think that's a very beautiful growth from her. I like her. I have no complaints about Emma whatsoever. I do like the character quite a bit. And A tier. Next up is Emperor Eugen, who I believe is currently on life support in Neo's stream. So out of respect for the probably fallen Emperor, at least in Neo's mind, I'm going to put him up to C tier. The one thing I will say about Emperor Eugen is, as someone who has read what he thought was all of the Black Records, except there's one volume left, he is doing what he thinks is right. C tier is 2 weak, got 3-shotted. I think it was just one bullet though. It makes sense why he defers to Osborne so much, and it only ever made sense towards the second half of Cold Steel 4. He defers to Osborne so much because Osborne is Strikos. Next up is Empress Priscilla. Barely got any screen time, but I can concede she's a good person, and unfortunately she's just a poster girl of the royal family. She's just there to look pretty and never does anything of substance herself. Next up is Anea. I feel bad for her for being the cult victim, and I do think if it wasn't for Duvali, Anea would be my favorite Star Ritter, so I'll put her up in B tier. I actually do kind of like Anea. Ernest, Burn in Hell. Ernest didn't deserve anything. I wish he just got eaten by Gnosis instead. But no, Lloyd has to save him because he will make Ellie sad. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo. I saw someone say it's not a prophecy, but a really good prediction that used fear to make people do what is said. The curse. Interesting. Okay, Invalid. Cover your ears. Estelle Bright is my least favorite protagonist. There, I said it. There. This is finally my time to come out and say it. Out of the 4 protagonists, not counting Nayuta, Estelle Bright is my least favorite. Okay, never mind. You remember. Alright, so I discard you. I'm sorry. It goes Lloyd, Kevin, Reen, then Estelle. That's still my order. That being said, Estelle is Bestel. I wholeheartedly agree with that. The scar just reopened. I can concede that Estelle is Bestel. Like, let's not make any mistakes. Estelle is a very easy S tier character. As a character, she is quite possibly one of the most well-written fictional characters in all of video games. Definitely very much up there. I have no complaints about her whatsoever. I think she's a nearly flawless character. How she grew up, how she matured, and how she, like, her own personality and everything about her is flawless. She's the picture perfect example of like a god tier main character in the video game medium. That she's S tier. There's not much else to say. That being said, she's my least favorite. So you can see where the other 3 are. Next up, F. Novartis. I don't hate him. I think he's kooky and fun. I like him more than Schmidt. I'll put him in C tier. Hell, actually, no, screw it. B tier. I want to see more. I think he's kooky and fun. All right, next up, Fee. Oh, this poor kid. Oh, this poor kid. I'll put her in the same tier as Emma. Because, yeah, she's had a rough life, surprisingly. And now she's, like, being a bracer suits her a lot. And I do like that being a bracer was where she ended up. It does suit her quite a bit. All right, next up is Fran. Very cute, very adorable. Had to get someone else to tank the grenade. I'll put her in C tier. Frizz. I like Frizz more than Ada, so I'll put Frizz 1 tier above Ada. I think Frizz is more outspoken about like how he's essentially like we're with Cedric, but at the same time Cedric is probably overstepping a bit. Like he seems to have a better head on his shoulders, is where I'm getting at. I like Frizz. All right, next up, G. Schmidt. Schmidt is kooky. He's weird. He's also very responsible, and he cares in his own weird way. But at the same time, he's incapable of saying thank you or good work. I did a search in the database. He says those two phrases exactly 0 times, ever. He's just not that kind of guy. That being said, I really can't bring myself to hate him. I think the fact that he's just a jerk 90% of the time is just his charm. I like that. like I actually don't dislike that. C tier. Gaius gets nearly 0 exploration and then inexplicably ends up as a Dominion. D tier. Oh my god. I don't like how little characterization they gave about him. He grows up in a very warm and loving family in a nomadic tribe where, you know, family is a core principle. So he got raised right. Like, he's a very honorable, he's a very just man. And he would do anything for his friends and family because he's a loyal, compassionate, very, very steadfast friend. He's like the best friend that you want in your life. But at the same time, that's it about him. Like, honestly, that's it. I can't bring myself to care about Gaius nearly as much as I can bring myself to care about any other member in Class 7. So I'll put him in D tier. Garcia. Very strong man. Actually, surprisingly, like, knows right from wrong. Oh, hello, Runic Tablet. Welcome to the stream. Garcia, he knows right from wrong. That I'll give him that. And it's weird because he earned points from me because even in his own weird way, he does have a lot of respect for guy bandings as well. And he said as much to Lloyd. And unintentionally, like, this gangster becomes one of Lloyd's biggest source of inspirations. Like, keep going when he's at his lowest point. Like, despite being one of the primary antagonists for Zero, I like what they did with his character. And he was always that kind of guy where, like, he's definitely, objectively speaking, not your friend, but also someone that you can probably trust if they were ever put on your side. So I'll put him in B tier. I do like Garcia. General Morgan, his character got compelling around the Hamo arc in SC and then stopped becoming compelling right after that. I'll put him in D tier. Georg Weissman, I hope he stays salt-pillared. George Nome. George Nome. I'll be honest, knowing everything I know about George as I do now, my overall opinions of him is pretty neutral. Or Black Mask. Like, my opinion of George is pretty neutral. He's definitely very uninspired for me, but at the same time, I don't really dislike the guy. I think he's okay. I think he's just okay. So I'll put him in C tier for being just okay. Now, next up is the Grand Master. This is the best picture I can find for him, by the way. This is the position he's in all the time anyway. I'll be very objectively honest. Gilbert should really only appear once every 3 or 4 games or so. Any more than that, and he kind of overstays his welcome. He's the laughing stock character. He's the butt of all the jokes, which is a trope that wears itself out super fast and then rolls over to being annoying very easily. But he's in the games at just the right amount of moments that it never stops being hilarious. I want him to come back, but not all the time. It's just when you're about to forget about him, then he pops up, and that's what gives him all of his charm. You know what? Yeah, screw it, S tier. I think he's hilarious. Right, next up, Gilead Osborne. Man, oh man. Gilbert who? Gilbert Stein, Regiment Commander of the 6th Enhanced Jaeger Division. Gilbert Stein. Next up is Gilead Osborne, aka the reincarnation of the lion-hearted emperor, except his lion heart is in somebody else. I'm surprised that they ended up with the trope of making him essentially possessed, but of his own volition. Ishmaelgus taunted Emperor Dracos for 250 years, and Osborne, in his moment of desperation, gave in and became possessed by the curse, out of love for his family, presumably, and then went on to do many horrible things. That being said, every time he shows up on the screen, I piss myself. That's worth at least an A. Vandal Savage Raj Al Ghul. Cooler as a pilot rather than a swordsman. I thought, yeah, I agree. I will agree with that. Him with a sword seems super out of place, but Dracos, I guess. Michael Gideon, Burn in Hell. Grace, probably my favorite reporter. Honestly, she's someone who is not afraid to take charge, and also I think it's hilarious that she keeps scamming the SSS out of information time and time again, and Lloyd just keeps on falling for it. So, you know what? Grace gets an A tier. I really do like Grace. When it comes down to it, she shows herself as someone who definitely knows right from wrong, and someone who's willing to do whatever it takes to find the truth. That's a very valuable ally to have, and I think of all the reporters, I like Grace the best. Grant, the game makes a meme out of him being the most forgotten because even the in-game characters don't remember his own name. So I'm going to keep with the meme and then keep Grant in F tier. I'm just going to say I forgot about him or something. Guy Bannings. Cool guy. Shame, died too young. Who? Yeah, exactly. Shame he died too young, but he's a good brother in all the few flashbacks he has. And his final heart-to-heart with Lloyd gives him a lot of points. Not enough to get him past B tier. I think putting him on the same tier as Sid and Arios makes sense for me. Next up is Gwyn Reinford. I feel neutral about him. Guy low tier got one shot. Yeah, but it was a backstab. Backstab bonuses count, right? Apparently, backstabs are 100% more accurate or something. Guaranteed crits. Gwyn Reinford is kooky, but also he shows himself to be responsible. He distanced himself from Irina because he constantly believed that she's doing the wrong thing. So all in all, he evens out for me. I definitely like Gwyn a lot more than I like Irina. I'm going to put Gwyn one tier above Irina, and I think I will put Irina somewhere in D, so I'll put Gwyn in C tier. Overall, I just averaged out about him. Hans, please keep it in your pants. D tier in you go. Harold Hayworth. Scientist Club in C. Harold Hayworth. I mean, I forgive him. The game did a very good job of making me hate him. The first time I walked into the Haver's estate when I was doing my rounds for the first time in Crossbell, during the prologue, when you could get control and explore all of Crossbell, I walked into the Haver's estate. I thought I saw the house name, the Haver's estate, and I shouted an obscenity very, very loudly in my room. I was conditioned to hate him and Sophia, and then eventually learned to forgive them. This guy took me on a roller coaster, man. Yeah, not his fault, exactly. He took me on one hell of a roller coaster. And the fact that he's like one of the most upstanding traders in the entire city says a lot about his character. And like, even when everything is long since said and done, he's still willing to repent. I'll give him 8 here. I like him. I wish terrible things would have just stopped happening to him. All right, this guy, burn in hell. Goodbye, Speaker Hartman. Henry McDowell. He essentially no longer exists after Adger. He's only ever mentioned in newspapers and flashbacks. And then during the course of Adger, he's extremely powerless. Like, Dieter was just driving everything. He's just there, like, as a figurehead. I'm very neutral about Henry McDowell. He had his one moment where he told Ellie to, like, don't quit her dream. And then Ellie just proceeded to also be invisible. I think this whole family just kind of got screwed over by the writers. Handmaid Hilda, very responsible, also very little screen time. Probably D tier overall. I can't find myself to like Hilda, but at the same time, I don't dislike her. Hugo Kleist. I can't recall him at all. I can recall some moments. Hugo Kleist. He had the weirdest characterization turn. Like, what, he just suddenly came back to his senses in Ulster? Like, that's the place where he drew the line? Really? Because, like, he's done some messed up things. Unintentionally in favor of propagating the curse as well. But unintentionally. He's just so cold and distant when he becomes like this monopolistic businessman. And let me just say, he doesn't deserve Becky. So, where's Becky at in this tier? She's in B tier? I'll put you in D then. Next up is Ian Grimwood. Even before I found out his true colors, I didn't like him. So I'm going to put him in F tier. F tier purely because even before he played his hand, I hated him. I just couldn't bring myself to like him. He went from bland to, oh, that's your excuse, to, wow, what the hell? And he's very wishy-washy. His motivations were never entirely clear. And even if when his motivations were made clear, he got talked down within like record time, like 2 minutes. He's just a very flimsy character that I don't like. Barrow? Yeah, Barrow's in the Barrow tier. Ian is Maruki? Sure. Ilia Platier, I like her. And the fact that I think her rehab finished at the end of CS4 and she can dance again, that makes me feel all kinds of nice inside. She's someone who sacrificed herself to save Sully, someone who has a brighter future, at least in her mind, but way less experience and actual skill than her, and she's willing to sacrifice herself to save Sully without even thinking about it. Does say a lot about her character, and I can admire her for that at least. So Ilia Platier goes in B tier. And this is my least favorite Stall Ritter. Anea is in B, so Ines goes in C. Arena Reinford, I said I put her 1 tier lower than Gwen for the reasons I explained during Gwen. Next up is Jean, the guild receptionist of the Ruan Bracer Guild. Doesn't really do anything. All right, next up is Jessica Schleiden. I wish she got more screen time. I'm going to put her in B in hopes that I can bribe some weird omnipotent entity to give me more story about the Schleiden School, because I want to know more about the Schleiden School. So I'll put it in D purely as a bribe. Next up is Jill, Hans's perpetual babysitter. So I'll put her 1 tier above Hans because she is Hans's babysitter. Next up is Jingo. Jingo told me if I put her in A tier, she'd cut me a discount on the next set of grenades, and I want a crate of grenades in my house, so Jingo goes in A tier. But on a more serious note, I do like that. I do like that Jingle is pretty shrewd for her age, and she's got a bright future ahead of her in underground illegal arms dealing. But bright future regardless. Why do you want? Don't you want a crate of grenades? If someone just offers you a crate of the grenades at dirt cheap, wouldn't you buy it? Next up is Joachim Günther. I'll be honest. I felt dumb because I didn't see the twist coming at all. That actually caught me off guard, and I felt really dumb for it. Because in hindsight, it was so obvious. D tier for fooling me, F tier otherwise. Meister Jorg. Potter Modders creator, so get some points for that. Why Fishism? I knew something was up. Yeah, that wasn't my brightest moment. I didn't know until basically the end. Definitely not my brightest moment. But in the hindsight, it was also clear, like, why are you like this? Why do you know so much? Why do you want to keep things for yourself? Anyway, Meister Jorg. Jorg? I'll put him in C tier because I feel very indifferently about him. I do like that as one of the heads of the 13 factories, he actually just hates Novartis' guts. And he seems to know everything, even Zeit. That in itself gives me a lot of intrigue, but at the same time, he also doesn't really do anything. Jonas Sacred, just get a salad, dude. Very whiny kid, but also in a hilarious way. If he wasn't hilarious, he'd go straight to F tier. But he's hilarious enough that I think I'll put him in D. He's been kidnapped to help you more often times than not, and he hates it every time. Can I punch him? Yeah, he's very unlikable, but at the same time, forcing him to do a ton of stuff is also really funny. Oh, excuse me. That was a hiccup. I got the hiccups. Josette Kapua. I despised her during Sky. She's an immature girl who always wants her way and can't get her way, so she throws a huge fit about it. All the time. Especially like Sandor 1. My god, that made me dislike Josette so much. And in Cosios 3 and 4, she grew up quite a bit. She's more mature, she's more responsible. But at the same time, like, I still can't really bring myself to like her that much, so I'm going to put her in D tier. Like, seeing her mature a little bit in Cosios 3 and 4 definitely saves her a bit. Otherwise, she'd still stay in F. Next up is Joshua. I could say so many things about Joshua, but I won't. I'll just put him in S tier, shut up, and move on. Anyone from Hamo goes into S tier. That's the new rule. You could write a book about his whole backstory, and I will read that book. So he's in S tier. Julia Schwartz. Probably the same as her combat tier list. I'm going to put her in C tier. She's probably also way too overly attached to Claudia, and she should probably get that checked out, but it would be pretty interesting. That's why, like, he has so much story tied to him, and it's all very good, very compelling story. So, of course, he goes into the S tier for me. Yuna Crawford. I discussed this at length in the past, but Yuna is exactly who Ellie was talking about in that rooftop speech. People who live in Crossbell is being blissfully unaware of just how corrupt and how great the city actually is. And to Yuna, Crossbell is this place of sunshine and rainbows, and getting that truth and reality ripped out from her definitely changed her character a lot and gave her a lot of growth, which I like. I like Yuna as a character. I wish she didn't get snubbed out by Reen. I genuinely wish she got more screen time in Costumes 3 and 4. It seemed like her moment to do her thing, but no, Reen has to take front and center. I feel bad for her. I think like Reen did her dirty in more than one way. She also belongs with Kurt, another thing that Reen did this dirty on. I'll put her in A tier. Usis, for nearly the same reason, also goes into A tier. Someone who essentially grew up unloved, finding his own ways in life, finding his own motivations, and then eventually coming back to put not only the father who didn't love him, but also the brother who betrayed him all in their places. I think it's just so satisfying. It must be so satisfying for Usis, and it's a great conclusion to a character. I like that. Like a lot of him is very well known, and a lot of him is actually, you know what? I talked myself into it. I'll put him in S tier. Screw it. Seeing his character from CS1 to CS4 was just so satisfying, especially when you realize that to the two people that he was closest to him in his life, but neither of them really loved him that much, he put both of them in their place. That's gotta be really, really good for him. And it's made him grow and mature a lot more as a character. Next up is Kanoa Malthea. Holy crap, I cannot stand her. I cannot stand this woman. She's so awful. Richard says jump, and then she asks how high. That's her character. Richard says betray your country. Sure, she betrays her country. Richard says stop betraying your country. Sure, she stops betraying her country. What is her even? Richard's only tier 3 sub. Yeah, and I hate tier 3 subs. Alright, next up. If you don't know who this is, I don't blame you. I found this off an Evo image file. No, I don't like the head of the Richard fan club. I despise this woman. Yeah, you got it, Mallet. It's Karen. She's from Hamo. She's automatically in S tier. She made me cry. That's unforgivable. How dare she? Kia, automatically S tier. If it's any less, that's a crime. She deserves nothing but the best in life. If you don't have all of Kia's decorations in Azure and you missed out on that scene, I am so sorry. You are missing out. Go watch Kia's room decoration scene. Very nice Zwei reference as well. Kevin Graham starts off as a playboy priest, grows up into, evolves eventually into one of the most compelling video game characters I have ever read about. He's second place, right behind Lloyd for me. Up you go. Easily one of the most compelling characters I've ever seen. In such a short time too, which in my mind makes him more compelling than Estelle. In the span of 40 hours, he is written into such an amazing, compelling, and dark character that I cannot help but love it. He also should have therapy and a book. Yeah. Kirika Ruran, what the hell is your deal? I'll put you in C, and I'll see where this ends up after Curl, because I know she's in Curl. Claudia. Chloe was my favorite character in FC. She was my favorite character in SC. She stopped being my favorite character in the third. But she's still up there, so I'll put her in S tier. She's a very young and capable person, and she can do whatever she sets her mind to. If only she stopped doubting herself half the time. I can relate with that. And also, her moon door is, I think, the longest door in the game, but at the same time, one of the few doors I went back and rewatched many times because I can relate on a very deeply personal level. I can relate, so that earns her some points. Next up is Kurt. I hate you. All right, next up is other Kurt. I like you. I really do. I think Kurt is one of my more liked characters in the new Class 7. I will almost put him on the same tier as Altina. Someone who just has a raving inferiority complex because in his mind, everybody else in his family has accomplished more. But through the guidance of someone who's been in the exact same boat as him, grows up to be somebody who can also take charge and inspire others. I think the combination of his character is when he confronted Ash in Hamel. and just saying like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Like, where did your pride go?" and all sorts of stuff, which I think is great that Kurt from 1 game ago could not have said that speech, but Kurt in Cold Steel 4 has grown up enough to be able to say that. That in itself is enough growth to warrant me really liking him. Also, he deserves to be with Yuna. Next up is Kyle. Kyle's my favorite of the Kapuas, so I'm gonna put him in B tier. I feel so bad for Kyle. His older brother's kind of kooky, and his younger sister's insane, and he's like the only reasonable person. And he's also the most mature and grown up. He definitely knows his siblings the best out of the 3 of them. Laura! Man, I was not expecting to see you down here, Laura. Laura has the Ellie syndrome. Laura has the Ellie syndrome. She has less motivations than Ellie even. I think learning enough to like eventually join the political circle and to push Crossbell and by extension Zemuria into a better place and to improve the general worldview and to solve things on a mass geopolitical level is a fantastic aspiration to have, even if Ellie doesn't live up to it. Still, it's a very compelling start. Laura's start is not compelling. She just wants to be a better swordswoman. She ends the game as a better swordswoman. And she will continue to try to become an even better swordswoman. So she will keep training until she is an even better swordswoman. That being said, she's the perfect pairing for Rin. There, I said it. They both inspire and motivate each other in ways that only Laura can. There's some value to that. Laura's ideal is very simple and is very one way, but it's also the exact same. It also takes the exact same energy and motivation that Rin lacks. That's my argument for saying why like she's a good pairing for Rin. What she has as character traits and character strength complements Rin's personal weakness very well. That's a huge plus to her as a character. And that's why, like, speaking from a personal level, I like this pairing because I truly believe Laura complements Rin in terms of personality and goals. She can become Rin's source of motivation for Rin's biggest character flaw. That being said, sword is not a good enough character trait. I will begrudgingly give her a C tier. Very begrudgingly. It would be lower. I'm just biased towards the Laura Rin pairing. Lecter. Cold Steel did Lecter dirty. Lecter started off Sky and Crossbell as an extremely mysterious figure who can always unnerve you. And then he stops doing that because in Cold Steel, that role got settled to Rufus instead. And then Lecter just kind of sinks into the background and the game just does him dirty. And then he just joins the same camp as Claire as needing therapy after all this is over, which I think is just so unlike what Lecter was introduced as, that the difference is kind of jarring. So here's a fun fact about Lecter. He's never deliberately lied to the player. He has never told a lie. But at the same time, you can't ever trust him. That takes skill to make a character like that. Someone that you can never fully trust, but at the same time, you know that when he's telling you something, he's probably not lying about it. Yeah, like, there's so much intrigue with Lecter. Now, granted, the intrigue cannot last forever. I am fully conscious of that. When Cold Steel rolls around, sooner or later, Lecter's hand has to be shown. I just think when he showed his hand, it became really disappointing because I wish it was done better. Essentially, what I'm getting at is that he did not stick the landing. That's all. I'll give him a I'll give him the same tier as Laura and Ellie. We're roughly the same symptoms if you don't think about it too much. Lena. You see her for like all of 10 minutes. And she's a good mom. What more can I say? B tier. Leonidas. I think Zeno is funnier, so I'll give Leonidas a D tier. Zeno is funnier. Lila. Maybell is funnier. I'll give her a C tier because I actually like Maybell. So this is Lind. Very responsible. Has to put up with Vivi. Probably is on aspirin prescription because she's putting up with Vivi. Her and Gaius is probably a thing. I ship it. You know what? I ship it so much, I'll put her on the same tier as Gaius. Lloyd Bannings. So this is my complete personal bias. Out of all the main characters, Lloyd has had the least amount of support, and he's had to deal with the most things. Estelle has an entire network of bracers on her back, and even the royal family in her pocket, essentially, just by virtue of being good friends with them. Reen has an entire class supporting him, and Reen also has another class supporting him, as well as a wide network of other people from all over Erebonia, including the bracers, which, granted, pretty defunct. Lloyd has 3 people, a chief, an adopted daughter, and a wolf. And that's it. Everybody else in the country does not give a fuck about this guy. His higher-ups are corrupt. His government is corrupt. Nobody has the SSS's best interest in mind. Maybe it was the populace when they won their hearts, but at the start, he's had to climb up from essentially zero. And he's dealt with so much with borderline no support network. As sometimes, even many times, a lot of his allies are all stripped away from him and he needs to stand on his own. And he pushes through purely because I just think he's a fantastic character. His claim to fame is his unbreakable determination and his ability to persevere through anything. And no matter what the world throws at him, Lloyd will not give up. He will... I said, yeah, climb up from zero. Like, he's had to fight for everything there, and he's had to fight through the most shit in his life with barely any support network. There is no bracer guild for him to fall back on. Like, he needs to go out of the way to ask them for favors. If you it's very easy to just strip his allies away because his government is corrupt, his organization is corrupt. He virtually has nothing major, nothing foreign that's supporting him. And still, he's constantly trying to make the best of every situation by sheer virtue of being very determined and very capable and very responsible, and someone who's more than qualified to be a team leader. He's also just very smart because he's like the only actually qualified person to like be investigative and be objective-minded and be critically thinking. Estelle is a 16-year-old bracer who gained a lot of worldview during her travels. Reen is a student who was essentially taught by a bunch of instructors. Lloyd worked his way up because he wants to follow his brother's footsteps, studied his ass off, became a very capable detective. And it shows, because throughout Zero and Azure, a lot of times it's Lloyd leading the investigations, Lloyd leading his team out of ways to think for stuff. And he gets subjected to so much danger, so much things that just want him dead, and constantly has so little support around him. He honestly just has like the SSS. The SSS doesn't have a headquarter in another country. The SSS doesn't have a vast teaching network somewhere else. The SSS is 4 people. It gets to like 6 people a bit later on and has some help with like 1 person from the 1st division, but the SSS at some point stands alone against the entire world, and Lloyd is at the helm. In Azure, when all the peace talks broke down, Erebonian wants a piece of Crossbow, Cower wants a piece of it, Ouroboros wants a piece of it, Arteria is intervening because Ouroboros wants a piece of it. Lloyd essentially has to fight them all off, even Arteria, because Arteria is like, he had to tell them to piss off and don't go for Kia. He's had to deal with so much, and he's overcome all of it. He's become a better person through the other end. I have a lot more things to say, but I don't want to rant for another 5 minutes. I will just end it off as, I think out of all the main characters that you can play as, Lloyd is the pinnacle, the apex of an example of what a true leader looks like, of someone who also has their own hardships and the ability and the perseverance and the willpower to have the never say die attitude to get through it all. Like, for someone like that to be a main character, I think it is beautifully written. It is perfection how they handled him as a main character, and I could not have asked for better. I love this character. I'll put him up in S tier. Lloyd, up he goes. Luve, he's from Hamel. Hamelians become S tier automatically. Luciola, I wish she stayed dead. F tier. That's not even a cruel thing to say. I genuinely wish she didn't survive that fall. One, how did you survive? And two, what is she even doing with her life afterwards? She just becomes a fortune teller after that? Nothing she said on top of the Axis pillar absolved her of the crimes that she's committed. It doesn't make her sympathetic, it just makes her more psychotic. And if she wants to pay for it with her life, and then just didn't, there's a lot of things for me to dislike about that. Anyway, rapid fire for a while. Lugren, D tier. Machias, very nice character arc. I like what they did with his confrontation with his sister's lover in Kill Steal 4. And where's Eustace? It only feels right to put him on the same tier as Eustace, right? Ah, crap, I put Eustace in S tier. You know what, Machias is probably A tier, but he's got to be with Eustace. I'll even like put him here. There we go. Actually, face each other. There we go. Perfect. Maribel. C for Croy. I don't think she's a terrible villain. Now Eustace failed this. God damn it. I don't think Maribel is a terrible villain. I actually kind of like her. Like, her whole character arc is that she's like completely mentally twisted and she's psychotic. And you know what? Kind of into that. Not gonna lie. Marquis High Arms. Friendly guy. Not much to say about him. I'll give him a solid B tier. Marquis Ragnar. Repentant for his actions, but at the same time can't stand him as much as Marquis High Arms. Put him in D tier. Oh, horrible. We must evacuate the citizens at once. Yeah, that's him. Mary. My god, this poor girl. Must be hard babysitting Clem all day long. I'll put her in C tier. Must be hard babysitting Clem. C for Clem, where are you going? There. Mayor Maybell. I said I put her 1 tier above Lila, so B tier. I do like Maybell. She's also probably like the most likable mayor of every single town that you go to in Liberal. She's probably the most likable one of the 5. Dalmor, not a likable mayor. Mayor Klaus, pretty likable old man, but at the same time, doesn't get enough screen time compared to like Maybell for some weird reasons. I'll put him a tier below Maybell. Michel. I'll be straight with you guys. Michel's my favorite guild receptionist. He goes into the A tier. Most likable, possibly richest mayor too. Yeah, exactly. Michel goes into A tier. He's my favorite receptionist. Milliam. I don't like Milliam as much as I like Altina. However, I will concede Milliam is adorable. Oh wait, actually, Milliam should be riding on Eustace's back, right? There we go. Milliam's riding on you now. I'll put her in 8 here. Mirio. She misses back and fell. Yep, fell down to 8 here. Mirio. I thought it's funny that Tio has Mirio on quick dial. Like whenever Randy does anything debaucherous, she just like has Mirio on quick dial, and I think that's funny. Also, I do like Mirio's character. She's constantly dealing with Randy, and that's gotta be worth something, right? So I'll put her in B tier. I do like Mirio. Mueller. We see a surprisingly little amount of Mueller, but he's pretty much married to Olivert. So C tier, he goes. I do like Mueller. I think him needing to put up with Oliver probably cut his lifespan short by about 20 years, but at the same time, he's also Oliver's best friend. And very honorable guy, very likable guy. Poor Julia. Yeah, oh, you know what? Hold on. There, now they're facing each other. Monk. I mean, dude got his dream job. I can respect that. C tier. Muse. I really like Muse. I think the things that compel me to her character is the fact that I have to constantly remind myself that she's 17 years old. And the interesting part about writing a character like Muse, someone who like is not doesn't have clairvoyance or omnipotence, but is just really smart and is essentially someone who can predict the future. Why do I have to remind myself? I don't know. She always seems older than she is to me. Because a 17-year-old doesn't say the things that she says. It's very interesting to try to write a character like that. You have to balance between what Muse knows and what the player doesn't know. Because a character like Muse can't show their full hand. As soon as they do, they become much less compelling. Oh, they do? I've seen that shit. Okay, fair enough. But as soon as they play their hand, become less compelling. Muse is a compelling character purely because she can predict, like more or less, for better or worse, predict events of the future that we don't know about yet. And then eventually all comes true due to her predictions. And then it's only said that she predicted them in hindsight, which is why that she's gathered the allies and has moved the chain of events along in the way that she has. Which means that she's much less effective as a character if you knew exactly what was about to happen. So the game has to strike a nice balance between what Muse knows and what you know. The problem is, if you want to actually give your game a conclusion, those 2 points have to meet up somewhere. At some point, Muse cannot see too far into the future. Muse can only see as far as the game will take you to. And at some points, those two have to coincide. And as soon as they coincide, and you know just as much as Muse, she will appear to have like lost essentially a lot of her smarts in her regards to like read situations and adapt and whatnot. So I think it's very interesting the way they chose to write Muse. And ultimately, what the direction they took her down was somebody who devised a plan that will kill millions in order to save the world. And for someone like her, are you saving your least favorite for last? No, I'm tiering everything and then dragging one into the least favorite. Oh, I guess yes in that regard. One into the favorite, one into the least favorite after everything has been tiered. So for Muse, it's for me one really compelling way is the fact that her bonding even existed. When Reen confronted her, if Reen did fall for a spell, would she have done shit with him? Better question. Maybe she expected him to resist her spell. Would she have done anything with him? Probably. Probably not. Probably. I do think, for what it's worth, I think her teasing Rin is half fake. It's more so for a disarming effect. I don't believe Muse ever does anything that doesn't further her own goals. And in that regard, her flirting with Rin constantly is a disarming effect. And I think it's only half genuine. But the thing that compels me was the fact that her bonding even in Post-CS4 exists when Rin confronted her about the fact that her pistol is loaded to kill herself with. Someone who has essentially already decided to put themselves down because they can't live with the conclusion that they've arrived at. And in a sense, Muse is also a very desperate character at that time because she wants an alternate solution, but she's not sure if she'll ever reach it. She planned contingencies for the worst case scenario because I guess she's being like the most realistic about the situation. Because you have to be a foolish optimist to hope that what Rin's doing can actually work. But she goes along with that plan because it's something that she wholeheartedly wants. She knows he will be in deep shit, plus in CS4 the final romance event, it shows she didn't think she could win the rainbow. Yeah. What I'm getting at is I think that Muse's character is very compelling, and it's something that I'm really drawn to. I like the way they wrote her. I actually do like her as a character quite a bit. Muse for me is an S tier character. Did you rank the games? Nope, right here. Not yet. Nightheart. Wish him the best with Fiona. I'll put him in C tier. Very responsible instructor. I wish he went with Sarah instead, but Fiona is a close second. Niall, probably tied with Grace for my favorite reporter. This guy is actually like on the same line as Grace. He's willing to put himself in danger to find the truth. I can respect that. I can respect the good journalist. Journalist, rather. Noelle Seeker. Oh boy, that's a... You either like her or hate her. I like her. Did you put her above S? Oh, nope, that's a mistake. Spoiler alert, she's not in here, by the way. She's not in there. She's a close second or maybe like third place, but she is not my favorite. But she is very, very close to being my favorite. That's a spoiler alert. Noelle Seeker. You either really like her or you hate her. I like her. I think she was doing what was objectively correct, even if it goes against her own morality. That's my take. And obviously, you can disagree and you can make a very strong argument to the contrary. Can we ban me? No, it's an accidental spoiler. I swear. No, I have a family. I'll put her in C. No, not C. I'll put her in B. I like Noelle. I'll put her in the same tier as Muriel. Olaf Craig. A very tropey character. He's always been like a very responsible army general who also wants the best for his son, and he tries to bare tackle his son every time he sees him. Very tropey character, but also very fun to be around. Very likable. So C tier. Olivert. He is not in S tier for me. Would you believe it? Olivert is not an S tier character for me. At least in B, I know, right? Greatest reporter. He did put his life on the line. I definitely respect that quite a bit. He's tied with Grace for my favorite reporter. I think Oliver is secretly the main character of Trails. Well, not even secretly. He is in every single game except one. And it's clear that like he sees the bigger picture but not the whole thing. But even despite that, he has essentially a fool's hope of overturning the board, and he'll do whatever it takes to gather all the allies to his side in order to find a new future. It is purely based on his work that we can even see, like, quote unquote, the good ending, quote unquote, the third path. he's the main character of the Trails franchise. I've never met anyone who dislikes Oliver. Absolutely not. He's almost a poster child of the series now. Everything that's been done is done with his cooperation, or he has the largest network of allies. Everybody's essentially, one way or another, fighting under his banner. So, and him as a character, he's very likable. He has a very unique way to diffuse every situation, and it just works. And he's not afraid to like lose a billion layers of his face to do it. He's an amazing character. Without this guy, not only would Cold Steel be different, Cold Steel might not even exist. He's such a centralizing character to the entire franchise so far. Everything that's been done, one way or another, directly or indirectly contributed or founded his cause. He's a very centralizing character. Would you believe me if I didn't put him in S tier though? I know how centralizing he is, but I don't find him as compelling as the people in S tier. Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike him. I like him. I really do. I think he's a fantastic character. But it just doesn't feel right to put him in S tier. Next up, Oscar. Holy crap. All right, I'm gonna do Bennett a favor. Where the hell's Bennett? There you go. There. Look at him. Look at him. Say it. Okay. Patrick. I'll be honest. I disliked him in Cold Steel 1. I still disliked him in Cold Steel 2. And in Cold Steel 3 and 4, I was more neutral. Well, it got to a point where I was happy to see him. But at the same time, if he wasn't there, I wouldn't feel like anything was missing. So it's a very neutral feeling for me. I'll put him in C. Duke Phillip, so did you guys know Duke Phillip is actually 20 years old? He just looks like this because he takes care of Doonan all day long. So I feel bad for him, so I'm going to put him in D tier. 1 tier above Duke Doonan. Actually, no, he's a very loyal butler. What am I doing? That's crazy. He doesn't belong in B tier. I'll put him in B tier. Polly, holy crap, she's adorable. I'll put her on the same tier as Mary because I actually like both of them. Polly's way too cute to not put up there. Queen Alicia. A very noble, wise, and just ruler. Definitely, like before I met her for the first time, I thought that she would be contrary to my expectations. And then she just turned out to be like a very wise and capable leader. I have no qualms with that. I'll put her in the same tier as Celeste, because that seems fine to me. Thank you for the hydration redeem. I do need it now. Water break. Randy, I like this character. We 2 hours in, got a lot to go. Oh boy. I love Randy's character. You can write a book about him. I literally wrote a book about him because Madam Might was streaming Cold Steel 3 without having played any of the earlier games. So I explained Randy's entire backstory to her. How long should this stream be? 1 more hour. So when I was explaining all of Randy's backstory to Madam Might, I typed for like 20 straight minutes worth of backstory and exposition. And just by recalling all of his past, all the things he did, all of the character growth throughout Azure, not putting him in the S would be an injustice. So I'll put him in S tier. So C tier? Yeah, right. The Ravens, all 3 of them together. The 3 Stooges. D tier. That's where I'll put him in. Rean Schwarzer, the best picture I can find. For him, he's definitely between Estelle and Kevin for me. I do like his character growth. Granted, he got 4 games worth of character growth. You're just hiding them from Hackett. I do like his character growth. I do like the fact he became a Divine Blade. And honestly, I like Rean as a main character quite a bit. I think that his entire storyline has been very compelling. And because Estelle's in S tier, and I think he's better than Estelle, how long will the stream be? 1 more hour. I'm putting him in S tier. Okay, next up, Ren. So, once upon a time, Falcom made a little girl, designed her with purple hair, gave her a pretty adorable dress. She looks pretty cute. And then Falcom finished her designs, drew her up. Then they took a look at her and said, we want this child to suffer. We want to make sure this child has the worst life conceivable. And then they did. And they said, we want to make sure this child can never catch a break for as long as she's alive. And then they did. So, for better or for worse, I'll take a little tangent here to... Without talking about Star Wars 15 in detail, I want to kind of go into a thing in writing that, morally speaking, comes at odds with me, or like not comes at odds with me, it's something that I want to examine with caution. It's the concept of writing in severe trauma. I'm trying to be as implicit as possible. I don't want to explicitly say the words. But there's a really good piece of writing advice out there. If you can use anything other than any of those things, don't use those things. Because so much so of the time, it's extremely easy to screw it up when you're writing with those kinds of concepts. It is so easy to take the focus away from the victim. It is so easy to make light or trivialize what is clearly a very severely traumatic and really messed up thing. It's not something that anyone can do, and if you can use any other writing medium, do not use it. Just don't. Just steer away from that kind. Falcom just said, nah, screw that, we're using it. And then they did. They went there with Ren. It's so rare to have writing like that work, because you have to do many, many things. Don't take the focus off the victim. Don't focus on the process itself. Well, you can, but you have to do so very carefully. It is more so about exploring the cause and the effect and the trauma that someone has to experience, and how they can essentially recover and try to move on and try to cope with all of that stuff. Writing trauma for the sake of just generating shock value is very cheap, because it's very easy to make light of those matters when you just turn it into trauma fodder. So whenever things like this happen, it's always against, a part of me always goes, this is too much. This is way too much for me to read. It's way too much for me to see. But the Falcom does a very rare thing that, especially in the year 2007, 2008, 6, they went there and they kind of didn't stop going there. All that being said, I'm not one to critique on how effective the writing there actually is. I'm not here to Like, I'm not here to state my stance on morals or anything. All I'll say is knowing this character, meeting this character, learning more about this character, and just realizing like the stuff that she in her situation had been put through and how she became as a person and her reasoning for being the way she is. It's extremely heartbreaking. It's very effective writing. It got the exact effect that it wanted out of me. Star Wars 15 is one of the few Star Wars I regularly rewatch from time to time. And every single time, even though by this time I've essentially memorized the script of the entire door, it's revolting to watch again. Like the impact it has on the audience is real. I can pretty confidently say I don't think any video game will go there ever again. I think it's a little bit too much. Now, all that being said, this character made me cry. Effortlessly with only 2 words. This is one of the only times like I broke down in my chair just crying for a very, very long time. All it took was 2 words, which was caught you. And that was the moment when I realized that this is a very good character in my books. It's had a very severe impact on me. So, I'm putting Ren in S tier. Objectively handled well, yeah. I think I can agree with that. Writing that kind of theme is such a slippery slope. It's a tightrope. And for what it's worth, I think they walked it to the end without incidents. But that was definitely a risk to take in terms of creatively speaking. That was a huge risk they took. I think it paid off, and in the end, they got such an amazing character out of it, which is so easy to screw up. Like, my God, I cannot believe they went there. Anyway, next up is Rex. I'm shocked how he got all those photos. I wouldn't be surprised if he handed me. Actually, once again, I'm going to bribe him. Give me a photo of the Grandmaster from a front. I'll put you in S tier automatically. Other than that, you stay in D. Next up. Points to you if you can recognize who this is. But I'm going to put him in... I'll put him in A tier. Not quite on the same tier as his sidekick, but he's a chill enough dude that I don't think he'll mind being put in A. I aspire to be more like him. Is that side god? Yeah, it's Ricky. This is Ricky. I aspire to be as chill as Ricky. If I can be like half as chill as Ricky, I'd be set in life. That's where I'm shooting for in life. Reese Argent. Holy shit, get up there. Yeah. Sidekick to Kevin, therefore shares Kevin's tier. Also, she's so snarky. I love her. Some of her lines are extremely quotable. Where's Kevin? Here. They're partners in crime forever, so it's only fitting they're in the same tier. And also, like the direction of life she chose to take, because choosing to go after Kevin purely to find out more answers about like why both he and Rufina left her behind is amazing. And also her trope about eating every food is very funny as well. I love Reese. I do love Reese. Next up is Risha. I will just say I've seen her bonding event, and that probably elevated her from a B to an A. I love the concept of like Yin being a title passed down from ancestor to descendant. And when it came for Risha's turn, she's very much now breaking free of the mold and like finding a essentially quote unquote different definition of what it means to become Yin. Joshua in S twice. Oh no. I like that for Risha. She came to an understanding of like there's more than one ways to become yin, and then she's able to embrace her new life and still find meaning in what she does. I think that's beautiful. That warrants an A tier for me. I like Risha. Rosine babysits Thomas all day long, so I'll put her in the same tier as the other squires. I'll put her in here. Oh boy, this guy's next, huh? So I'm going to procrastinate, and instead of doing Rufus, I'll do the 4 guys I put in at the last because I forgot they existed. Dan Russell, stable but also very boring as a result. Put him in D tier. Erica Russell, if you have the evil voice patch for the 3rd, install it. Listen to Erica Russell's Japanese voice actors. She's legit screaming at the top of her lungs in every single line. I think that's hilarious. So I'll put her in. I'll throw her in B tier just because I think how funny she is. Kayla. Erica is great. Kayla, I'll put her in D tier. Lucy Salen. I'm surprised she doesn't have wrinkles yet from dealing with Lecter all day long. I'll put her in C tier because I actually think her dynamic with Lecter is great. All right, now, with the distraction out of the way, we come back to this guy that I've avoided. Rufus Alberea. I don't hate him. I've always liked Rufus as a character. Even when he did blatantly horrible things, I've liked Rufus Alberea as a character. Someone who chose to rely on nobody except himself with the lofty goal of surpassing the one man who ever gave him the respect that he thinks he deserves. He's a very selfish person, and in the end, that was his biggest downfall. I think he's a very compelling villain. Surprisingly, it's a very vanilla arc, but at the same time, it's a very satisfying arc to live out. He's always the guy that's used very underhanded tricks to get himself up to the top, and in the end, it wasn't enough for him, because obviously it wouldn't be enough for him. He gets credit for his KD ratio. That's very true. He's done terrible things. Yes, he's an absolute objective raving asshole. But I like him. I really like him. It's a very vanilla villain arc, but for some reason it was satisfying for me to see it through to the end. Just for the satisfaction of seeing users punch him alone, I'll put him in B tier. I don't care. Alright, next, Sarah Valentine. Unlike Neo, Sarah is not my soulmate. Unlike Neo, I didn't really grow magnetic to her backstory. I will sympathize with her backstory, and I think she's a very capable woman in her own right, and she's very respectable for what she set out to achieve and what she did achieve. I'll put her in the same tier as Risha, because they both give me the same energy. Next up is Shera. I'll put Shera in B tier. I've never really liked Shera, but I've never really disliked her either. But her role as being like a mature older sister to Estelle, and later on a mature watcher over Oliver, gives her some credits for me. What does push her over the edge is her door in the 3rd, which gives a lot more insight into the rough upbringing of her childhood. And I'll be honest, I did tear up a little bit when she ended up finding purpose after her wild journey with Aina in Gransel. Finding out that her life does have another sort of purpose, and that she can live to be proud of herself and can move on from her past. And I think that's inspirational, motivational enough to give her a B tier. Next up is Sergey. I'm going to be honest, I wanted to please Sergey more than my own dad. I wanted this guy's approval so badly. A very likable team leader, very surprisingly irresponsible guy, but at the same time does have a very caring outlook and does genuinely watch out for the SSS. Drove them through literal rain of bullets. Definitely the chess in Zero gave me so much more respect to him than I already had. Rest in peace, Ushio-san. Your voice work for Sergey was superb. This guy's a legend. And I'll say it again, I wanted to please him more than my own dad. He's had a very good impact on me. Let's go... You know what? Let's go 8 here. Sharon. There's not a lot I want to say about Sharon. I think she's just funny more than anything. Did someone say T? I think she's just more funny than anything. Her intrigue as an enforcer doesn't interest me nearly as much as just her uncanny ability to be in a lot of different places. I mean, she's a staple in Cold Steel by now, and I have nothing bad to say about her. But at the same time, there's nothing really stand out about Strider either to me, so I'll put her in C tier. Next up is the Crazy Chick. The Crazy Chick, I'll put her and Sigmund in the same place. So Shizuku move over for a little bit. Shirley's done very unforgivable things in the name of seeking thrills, and objectively speaking, she's a terrible person. But also, both her and Sigmund are crazy enough that they're interesting enough for my books. They're good enough for C tier. Murder, am I right? Yeah, right? Alright, Shizuku, very precious, must protect. Unfortunately, a tier below Kia, because I want to protect Kia slightly more. She is also on the must protect tier list, so I'll put her up in A. Sonya. I guess my stepdad's ex-wife, question mark? Because, yeah, I really like Sergei. I like Sonya slightly less so, but I will give her points for essentially like letting Noelle go back to the SSS, which she would never have done. She's way too loyal to do that unless Sonya orders her back in the most random way possible. Smart woman, good head on her shoulders, very capable. CGF's in good hands with her until they got occupied. I'll put her in the same tier as Muriel. I think they both have roughly the same energy. For Sophia Havers, I'll put her in the same tier as Colin. I've learned to love and forgive both of them, so that's fine. Also, Sophia probably also needs to catch a break at some point in her life, because wow. Scarlet, I feel very negatively toward anywhere between very negatively to neutral towards her, so it averages out to be a D tier. She had intrigue about being in Arteria, and then she went back to Arteria, and then we just stopped hearing about her. So there's not a lot to go off, not a lot of meat on the bone. Solly. I like Solly in a weird and kooky way. She's weird and kooky, and she lashes out at kindness via anger because that's like the staple of Northumbria. I'll put her in B tier. Next up is Matron Teresa. Matron Teresa goes in A tier for me. Matron Teresa is... Why do I take so long to read one character? What are you talking about? Matron Teresa goes into the A tier for me. She raises a lot of kids and she's had a very hard life and she's a very kind woman. She has real mom energies and I can appreciate someone with real mom energies. And also, anyone who attacks Matron Teresa is unforgivable in my books, which is why Dalmor is down all the way down in the F tier. Next up is Thomas Lysander. But it's true. Hey now. I need to know more about Thomas before I rate him up higher, so I'll put him in B tier for now. Alright, the moment that I think at least Dan's been waiting for. Tio Plato. The question really comes down to, do I like Tio more or do I like Randy more? I think I like Randy more. Because I think Randy is just a more compelling character. Tio is like a beta Ren. But like she's the foil to Ren, whereas Ren was found by the society, Tio was found by Guy Bannings. And Tio grew up to be a very snide young woman who's also very caring and very adorable. And I mean, what can I say? I do like the way she talks. I do like the fact that she's slowly finding where she belongs. I like her slow I like her journey in life to discover the reason why she's alive, what she's living for, what her purpose is. All of that really speaks to me as well as an individual. I'm not dragging this out because I think it's no secret where she goes. I think it would be criminal for her to not be in S tier. I will say, just as a disclaimer, I do like Randy more than Tio, but it would be a crime to put Tio below S tier. If anyone puts her below S tier, I will personally fight them. Tita. I'll be honest, I like Tita the least out of all the little girl characters. I think Tita goes into B tier for me. Very capable young engineer, and her big character moment was during her moon door in the third, where her mom confronts her about, yes, 3 members of the SSNS here. Can you tell that the crossbow games are my favorite? What if someone raids you? No one's raiding me. Tita is a very capable young engineer and had big character moments in the moon door, where her mom confronts her and asks, hey, you're an engineer, and if you want to join a weapons research project, are you okay with the concept that someone might use your weapon to cause harm to other people? Oh, thank you for the hydrate. That wasn't a question that Tita can answer. Like, if only because of Ren did Tita find that answer. And she always saw Ren as, despite being older than her, she saw Ren as like the bigger sister of the duo. And she's taken a lot of inspiration from her to better herself and to just essentially become better. I will applaud her for her initiative to go to Erebonia to essentially do more for her friends. She's got a lot of fire in her. Can I ask you to stop spamming my chat? I'm sorry, I love you, you're my sister, but please stop spamming my chat. Also, please stop using my real name online. I do like Tita. But not as much as the others. If the others go in S tier, I think I'll put Tita in B tier. Toby. I'm just gonna skip past Toby's character because I just, out of a sense of duty, I need to put him where Ayn is. Where's Ayn? Ayn's in B tier. There he is. I found her. There we go. Now he's where he belongs. Next up is Tova. Tova is adorable. We must protect Tova. That being said, I don't think Tova is quite S tier for me. I'll put Tova in the... Tova in B tier seems like an injustice, so Tova in A tier seems about right to me. I don't think Tova is quite an S tier character. That being said, I feel a strong urge to protect Tova whenever she shows up on my screen. I think that's just a weird instinct I have, but she's a great girl. She is. She's too pure and innocent, despite being really old for her size. Next up is General Van Dyke. I'll put General Van Dyke as a solid C tier. Very supportive background character, but also forced to do someone else's bidding. Viscount Arcade. Oh boy, Viscount Arcade. Out of the group of 4 she was in, she went through a lot of shit. Not as much as Crow, but Crow doesn't get nearly enough time to flesh out all of his stuff. But Tova's definitely been... She's gotten the shortest end of the stick, because all 3 of her friends have some weird history going on, and then she's always the one suffering because of it. She doesn't deserve any of that either. Okay, next up is Viscount Arcade. Short. Oh my god, I can't believe it. You caught me, Dan. Viscount Arcade is... not fleshed out enough. He is Laura if Laura somehow got less character writing. I have no mercy towards Viscount Arcade than I do towards Laura. I'll put him in D tier. I just don't think he's compelling enough. I just don't think he fulfills his purpose in a meaningful way. So I put him in D tier. Next up is Vita. She's definitely the Anguis that gets the most screen time and the most explanation. And through her, you can kind of see the lens into just how Ouroboros really functions as a society. So, for Vita Clotilde, I will bestow upon her the A rank purely for the intrigue, for having known so much about her. Next up is Vivi. If I don't put her in at least B tier, she might bribe me. Otherwise, actually, where's Linda? Where's Lind? Where's Lind? Oh my god, Lind's in D tier. Okay. Well, I'll promote both twins to C tier, just to average it out. It seems like they should be together. Next up is V. I feel nothing about them. I just don't know anything about V. Yeah, Rufus got his entire corp killed. Big whoop. His entire character arc is take revenge for Armgarmer. And then he just dies. Yeah, he died at least, but at the same time, he's got like what, a total of 20 lines of dialogue? I'll put him in D. Walled Whales, I'll save you for later. I'll put him in F for now. Walter. Walter is someone whose greed took him over, and I'll save my. I'll stay my tongue on him for now. I know he's in Coral. I'll wait until he's in Coral before I pass for judgment, but for now he's neutral to me. He's just a very crazy guy who wants power and will do anything to get it. Vayne. Well, Vayne died at least twice over the course of Cold Steel, which is a miracle. First time he died because Balancing Clown shanked him. And the second time he died because Aurelia caught him, like, Aurelia found him, like, spying on her training or something, like, being unwilling to go into the training room. So yeah, my poor boy died twice. So I'll put him on D tier, honorary D tier. Wazi. I will just say whoever wrote Wazi is big brain. Like, Wazi's writer is a big brain writer. The amount of misdirection that they gave this character is insane. And as a Dominion, he's very compelling as well. I like Wazi. I'll put him in A tier. Next up, Xeno. Xeno is more fun than Leonidas, so I'll put him in C tier. Sin. Shin has a crush on Ellie. I have a crush on Ellie. I sympathize with Sin. Except Shin is also he's also with Heiyue, and that's about the extent of him. I'll make sure he can look at Ellie. There we go. I'll put him in C. Zex Vander. Zex Vander is one of the first Vanders to publicly oppose Osborne. I'll give him credit because like Oliver actually convinced him in SC, like, join me. Don't do what Osborne's telling you to. He's bad man. He is bad man. Just join me instead. And Zex was like, sure. And then he got sent off to North Highlands for it. Very responsible army general. Very cool guy. I would love to hang out with him one day. And just because I love to hang out with him, here he is in B tier. I like his design. I like his character. There's not much else. Zeit. Being a divine wolf is very important for lore, and Zeit gives me exactly what I wanted. A lot of insight into the nature of the Septarian, the destiny of all the Septarian, and how those things are handled. Plus, he's just a very nice, friendly wolf that everyone wants. I like Zeit. I think he's the best doggo. Best doggo gets A tier. Best doggo gets A tier for me. Zeit is a very intriguing divine beast. A lot more insight into like the grander scale of Zemuria on a macro scale. And lastly is Zin. Zin. Solid drinking buddy. Can't wait to see him in Kuro. Very strong man. Very good man. Bails us out of trouble quite a few times. Very capable bracer in his own right. Okay. So let's go through this list. And now we rank the least favorite character. Time for my rant. Let me get a drink. Explicit language warning. I'm about to get angry and I'm about to swear a lot. So, Walled Whales. What the actual fuck did he do to deserve any of the things he got? he starts off as a very purposefully unlikable character. Rough around the edges, leads his own gang, intentionally obstructs Lloyd's investigation for no good reason other than just to be edgy. Demands to detain Ellie and Tio because haha, being pervy and lecherous is the gangster way. He starts off on the wrong foot already. Wazzy has a good head on his shoulders. He's like, okay, sure, I'll help you, if only just to see how far things go. Granted, he has an alternate agenda as a Dominion. Wall doesn't. Wall's just a big, stupid buff guy. Sure, I can give that a pass. I don't mind any of that. And then this character gets an inexplicable amount of leniency and love, and then chooses to swat all of it away. Wazzy tries to help him. He tells him to piss off. His own gang tries to help him. He tells his gang to piss off. He just lives to be this angry, edgy person who wants power for himself. And he gets it by betraying everyone that's ever trusted in him. Everyone who's tried to set him straight. Anyone who's tried to reach out and help him. He swats them all away. He tells them all to back off. He tells them all to get out of his business. When he acquires power, he sees it as his ability and he sees it as a gateway for him to shake off his past. He thinks his past of being sentimental or being a leader, of having led a group of people who truly loves and believes in him, are attributes that made him weak. So what does he do? He abuses a drug, goes back, beats the shit out of all the people who ever loved him, and then just brags about it over their half-dead bodies, being like, look how strong I am, you fucking weaklings. And then he gets put in his place, deservedly so, and then they forgive him. What the fuck was that? How does he deserve compassion still after everything he's pulled? After how unapologetic and how unwilling he is to have people reach out to him? You think a sob story about how your dad killed himself by drinking isn't supposed to something to make me do a 180 and suddenly think, oh yeah, so that's why he's all grumpy and sad and they jerk all the... That's not how this works. He is rough, unapologetic, very lecherous, very mean, extremely violent. He has no redeeming qualities to him whatsoever. And yet, people refuse to let him suffer his own consequences. Even when he's directly helping the bad guy spawn the phantasma in the Azure Tree, they still try to reach out to him, and Wazzy recruits him? How did he deserve that? What did he do to earn any of this? Wazzy likes him dumb and big? So why does Lloyd and the SSS still feel sympathy for him? Why does he deserve a shred of sympathy? Why does he deserve not even the tiniest comeuppance for any of the unthinking and irresponsible shit he pulled? He abandoned the people that believed in him. He even attacked the people who believed in him for no good reason other to just flex. That's objectively messed up, objectively evil, objectively irresponsible. But no, they just refuse to let him suffer any consequence for it. What? My mind is blown at how much this guy gets away with scot-free, no strings attached. And I've had enough of this guy. I get him out of here. I hate this character. I despise him. He doesn't deserve any of the things he got. And he got away with it all for absolutely no reason. What an incredibly entitled and spoiled man-child that somehow doesn't even get his own... He doesn't even reap what he sows. It's confusing. It's disgusting. I don't like it. I hate it. Anyway, rant over. Fuck this character. Oh my god. I don't like him. My god. Alright, rant over. Thank you for the hydration. Alright, now it's time for the fun part. We pick out our favorite character. Yeah, you think I don't like Wald, huh? So my favorite character, surprise, surprise, is between two people. It's between Ren. No, three people. I lied. It's between Ren, Muse, and Lloyd. Now, I'm immediately going to disqualify Muse. I think she's a solid third place. But there's a pretty big gap between Muse and the other two. I think of Ren as a masterpiece in terms of character writing, and I think of Lloyd as roughly the same. Unfortunately, there can be only one. Excuse me. So, because we still have another tier list to get through, I'm just going to kind of hold off on the fanfare and say that my favorite character, from a purely subjective standpoint, just in my opinion, who I like the most, who I enjoy the most, who gives me the most fun time whenever they're on screen, always finds a way to make me happy, make me laugh, and just like an overall enjoyable character to learn more about, is easily Duvalie. I think Duvalie is fantastic. I think she's very cute. I think she's very funny. Her voice actors knock it out of the park for both languages. I genuinely stand by this. I think Duvalie is fantastic. I have no bone to pick with Duvalie. Now, is she as well written as Lloyd and Ren? No, absolutely not. That I will concede. However, my favorite slot is highly subjective, and I love seeing Duvalie more so than I love seeing anybody else. So Duvalie wins. Hooray. Good for Duvalie. Okay, now we have about 30 minutes left on the stream. We'll do this one last tier list real quick. The be-all, end-all of tier lists. On this 9 games in the mainline Trails game, no Nayuda, haven't played it yet. No Reverie, haven't played it yet. I'm going to rank them all from left to right, the one on the left being my most favorite. So I'm going to start on the right. My least favorite Cold Steel game. Like if I ranked every game out of the 10, this one would be like a 7. That's Trails of Cold Steel 1. Very janky pacing, in my opinion. I didn't really like how the game is very slow, takes its very sweet time to introduce the characters, lack the intrigue. The only big plot twist at the end was Crow being C. It is very understandable why it's my least favorite game. I think the cast starts out very bloated, and a lot of them don't even get character growth until Cold Steel 3. Understandable, but also not forgivable for just making me play through 60 hours of filler. It is my least favorite Cold Steel game. That being said, still a very good time. Trails is a very good video game series, and I don't dislike a single game. So, out of my favorites ever, Cold Steel 1 takes the bottom spot. The one right after this is going to be Sky FC. Sky FC is one of the rare games that I've played and beaten many, many times. More than twice, even. This is the game that starts it all. I cannot bring myself to ever dislike the game, but that being said, the pacing of this game is monstrously slow. Even by Trail standards, it's monstrously slow. Nothing actually even happens until the end of Zeiss, which is one chapter away from the game being done. And also, it's objectively not a bad game. It had to have been a good game for me to say, okay, now I'm going to be playing Trails until I die of old age. It's definitely done the job of being the hook that gets me into the series. That being said, with all the other stuff that the other games have pulled, you need the first game to be less in scope for the other games to really take off. So, for now, this game goes in the second bottom slot. Next up is Trails of Cold Steel 2. I the premise of this game is okay-ish, I guess. The concept of the Civil War going around recruiting everyone, that part of combat aspect I really like. This is easily the most broken game out of all the actual games. You can just like kill everything in a single hit. It's kind of bonkers. They really did balance this out much later on. My favorite part of this game is actually the part where it just refused to end. At some point, it just became funny that after the finale, there's just another chapter, and then there's just another chapter after that, and then that one just lasts forever. The first games of the series start off slowly. Yeah, that's very true. But again, no fault to the first games. They absolutely have to be slow. The exciting parts always have to wait till later. It's no fault to the game on its own. Now, objectively, it doesn't shine a very kind light onto them, but it doesn't make them bad. Like, the lowest game on this list, Cold Steel 1, is still like one of the best games I've played in recent years. Now, after Cold Steel 2, it's going to be SC. I know, SC is very low. SC is very, very low. It's on the bottom half. My biggest problem with SC is the early pacing is garbage. This game has 10 chapters if you count the prologue and the finale. And it takes 6 of the first 10 to introduce the bad guys. 1 enforcer per chapter. Also, the prologue sucks. The prologue can go suck a blender. What the hell was that difficulty spike? The pacing in the early game is so incredibly slow. More than half the game is just introducing the bad guys, and it's very formulaic past the point. They show up, make an introduction, gives you the slip, makes you fight a boss. And you repeat that 5 times. It starts to get interesting in chapter 5 when you meet Luve, which is the last major enforcer. And that was the huge moment with Agate and Tita, which is my favorite moment in SC personally. Like, I rate that moment as better than Estelle and Joshua reuniting. And then the game gets so good. But also, it's like 50 hours of inaction. Next up in the list is going to be Trails of Cold Steel 3 for me. This game is way too long. Now, thinking back on it, a lot of things happen in this game. I will still always make fun of Class 7 at the end of Cold Steel 3. There's a massive unidentified nest filled with some of the strongest enemies on the continent, and many of them have confirmed to have kicked our ass in the past. It's also guarded by about 24 of the strongest people we've ever faced. I know, let's all run in there. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, so Cold Steel 3 is almost a rehash of Cold Steel 1. So many things get repeated, so many tropes get repeated, and in many ways, Cold Steel 4 and Cold Steel 2 have similar structures in that sense as well. I don't dislike the game. I think the ending of this game is still one of my favorite endings. It's just that the overall pacing of this game and navigating through leaves, and all of the extra fluff that gets put into the game kind of starts to become too much. Like, I wanted to move on, but no. First, I had 5 profile notes, 2 hidden quests, 3 Vantage Master games, 1 radio story, and 2 new fish to catch. And also, there's a new landscape photo in another road that you have to go to. Okay. It's also a point, I do think Cold Steel 3, for the most part, have the least compelling side quests. Because a lot of the important lore bits gets dumped into the main quest, which honestly isn't ideal for the most part. Because I like doing the side quests in the Trails game. Side quests oftentimes gives you more lore than the main quest because it's more intrigue about the overall world. Trails is always a series that prides itself on the entire world being constantly dynamic and alive and going. But when you just make all the side quests less compelling, it does damage the flow of the game. Because at some points, seeing like 300 side quests, they do kind of become a drag. That being said, when the side quests do give extra insight into the branch campus stories, like the branch campus quests, I think overall were great. The side quests, when you're going on a field exercise, not so much for the most part, but the branch campus quests are great. I liked more character insight into the branch class. I also like the direction they took with the branch class, that there's a much lesser cast. There's only like 20 or so branch campus students, which means by the time you leave Leaves for the first time to go to Parm and St. Arc, you already know a lot of the branch campus students, and you already have a more personal connection with them than you do from the cast in the main campus. Because like to this day, I don't really care about Frito or Paula or Lambert, but I do care about people like Pablo and Maya and Gustav. Like I think reducing the cast has definitely made the branch campus students more personable and likable. So it gives bonus points for that. Next up, it's gonna be Cold Steel 4 for me. Cold Steel 4 is, in my mind, the best Cold Steel game because it concludes everything in what I believe to be a very satisfying way. And I think a lot of the character arcs got wrapped up certainly quite nicely. And it likes to end the game with an extra bit of intrigue that the world only has 3 years left before it goes kaput. Definitely makes me want to play Reverie, but not bad enough to not wait until 2023 rather. That being said, I think it is a very solid conclusion to the Erebonian arc, quote unquote, even though Reverie actually concludes it that I'm aware of. It was a very satisfying game to play through, and for that I think it is the best Cold Steel game for me. So next up, it's gonna be Trails from Zero. Trails from Zero has some early game pacing problems, just like with every other first game of the series. But this game ramps up fast. The SSS cast is, at least to me, extremely likable right off the bat. The concept of reducing the world to one major city of Crossbell also makes your rounds have more meaning. By the time it's your third round through the entire city, you start knowing all the NPCs by heart. You know about people like Mei Ling or Old Man Morse or Bond or even Creo, Bond and Creo and Old Man Levick and the spending habits. All of these people that just hang around. Even Barker Bim, I like that guy too. Everyone in Crossbell is very likable, and the fact that you're confined to Crossbell for your major rounds for the entire city did a lot for the actual world building. It made Crossbell feel very much more alive than any other major city you've been in. While my gripes with Sky was that, yeah, sure, Bose is interesting, but you're only in Bose like 3 times ever, so all of those NPCs become kind of impermanent. But Cold Steel games don't really have that issue. I love the concept of having a setting in Crossbell. Now, Erebonia took that and probably way overdid it, but yeah, time to see if that guy's still fishing. Exactly, like everybody in Crossbell feels much more personable. It's a big city of like 100 or so NPCs. I know all of them by heart. It's a very charming place to explore and run through. And just have that ties you throughout the early story, and then before you knew it, shit hits the fan. Starting from the Crossbell Anniversary Festival, each of the 5 days end in some major revelation, and then the game just picks up, and it doesn't stop hitting, and it keeps going until the very last second. And surprise, it's only half over, and the biggest plot twist is in the next game. It's the perfect duology, really. It's the first half of a perfect duology. So that being said, we're going to pad out Sky the Third. I like the structure of this game. I am the combat guy. I do a lot of fighting, so a game like this is right up my alley. The Star Doors are also very nice bite-sized story moments that I also enjoyed as well. Not much to say. Kevin's amazing. Reese is amazing. This game is amazing. I love it. But also, Bennu can go suck a blender because holy crap, he's unfair to fight on Nightmare. And finally, Trails of Azure. I don't think that's a secret. I like the color blue. It's my favorite color, so I'm already unnaturally biased towards Azure. But Azure doesn't stop. It never ever stops. Play this game more than once. I will continue to play it. My favorite game of all time is Legend of Heroes 4. I played it when I was 7. It got me into the Legend of Heroes franchise, not just Trails. It took 18 years for me to find a game that dethrones Legend of Heroes 4, and the game that dethroned it was Trails of Azure. This game is special. This game forced me to produce a video essay. It took me the better part of 2 months to make it. I don't regret it. I think it was a nice homage to one of my favorite Trails games of all times, and easily my favorite video game of all time. I do like Trails. I want to continue making content for Trails. because this is something that's truly special for me. Those are all the tier lists. I feel like it's fitting to end the tier list with all the games in general. Considering this 2 nice days of like post-trails content wrap up. So the question is, what's next? Because I've kind of already set it in stone to continue streaming on every Friday and Saturday. So what's in store next Friday? Well, I'm playing Post-CS4 next Friday, but I'm going to fulfill a promise I made to myself a long time ago. Next Friday, I won't actually be playing a lot of Post-CS4. What I will be doing is watching and learning from a speedrun of Post-CS4. And then over the next little while, until I can get my next big project, which is Legend of Heroes 4 translation run, until I can get that started, I'm going to be learning and doing Post-CS4 speedruns. And I'm going to see how much I can improve. Am I doing the run on easy or nightmare? So far on speedrun.com, there are no official runs in any difficulty other than normal. So I'm going to be doing a normal difficulty speedrun for Trails of Post-CS4. I like to focus on just one category and getting really good at it. So I'm going to, starting next Friday, pull up and learn the speedrun for Post-CS4 on stream. And then until I can get my next project running, I will just be doing nothing but Post-CS4 speedruns. We'll see how well I can do. We'll see if I even like speedrunning. But if you're into that, please do join me next Friday as we all come and learn some speedrun strats. And then after that, we'll start banging out our own runs. And eventually, maybe, I'll actually be a good Post-CS4 speedrunner. I think that'd be cool. And if that's into your thing, if you want to just watch me learn, want to watch me try something new, feel free to stick with me along the journey. But that's going to be the immediate plans until I can tide over into my next big project. Speedruns all the games? Probably in the place in the future. I do owe everybody like something I promised to do a long time ago. And just to like bide over a few months while I set that stuff up, I'm just going to be learning one speedrun for one game because it's a long investment to learn and perfect the speedrun. Eventually, yeah, this will expand to the other Trails games as well. Don't worry about that. So until then, let's let this be the wrap up to this stream. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sending me the hot shot. I see the bribery attempt worked. Once again, I hope all of you have a fantastic evening. I will see you guys tomorrow night in Neo's stream. And you guys here are also in Neo's community. I'm sure you guys are all chomping at the bit to get in his stream as well after what happened Friday night. I will be there with you. I will be there taking care of chat, doing everything. I'll see you guys next Friday. I hope I've been a fantastic source of entertainment for you for the past few hours. Everyone do take care. Have a fantastic evening. I will see you all tomorrow. Love you guys. Take care.